Chapter 1345. In this area, one could feel the tyrannical auras of celestial realm experts in the Earth's secret territory at any time. Yi Shiwen didn't pay attention to these tyrannical auras and went straight to Wanlan realm. Yi Lanshan had finally returned. Yi Lanshan hadn't been around for some time, so Yi Shiwen hadn't been able to see this legendary woman. His speed was too fast. The experts of Golden Jade Pavilion, who were blocking his door, couldn't keep up with his speed at all. They could only watch helplessly as he disappeared into the sky. Soon, Yi Shiwen arrived at Wanlan realm. The environment was similar to Thousand Feather realm. It was also a small continent. At this time, there was already someone waiting for Yi Shiwen's arrival at Wanlan realm. Yi Lanshan wasn't around during Yi Shiwen's previous visits, but Yi Lanshan knew his intentions. If it was before, Yi Shiwen might not have been able to see Yi Lanshan at all, because compared to Yi Lanshan, he was really too inferior. But now it was different. After defeating Yin Taiping, his reputation had also climbed to a new peak. He was absolutely on equal footing with Yi Lanshan, and even Yi Lanshan didn't dare to underestimate him. As a matter of fact, as soon as Yi Shiwen returned, he immediately received an invitation to come over. When Yi Shiwen saw Yi Lanshan, he discovered that she was an extremely beautiful woman with an extraordinary aura. Although she was wearing an ordinary long dress, she had an aura that ordinary beauties didn't have. That was the aura of a peerless expert. It had to be said that even in the cultivation world, everyone said that men and women were equal. As long as one was strong, one would be able to gain respect. But overall, men still occupied the absolute advantage, while women always sat at the bottom. This was also the overall situation, and there was no way to change it. Therefore, the fact that Yi Lanshan was able to occupy the fifth human secret realm as a woman and was only second to Prince Jean, and Prince Yu showed how powerful she was. Therefore, she had the aura of an expert that ordinary women didn't have. The kind of aura of a leader that was full of vigor and vigor. This made Yi Shiwen's eyes light up a little. I didn't know that Brother Yi had come to see me some time ago. It's a bit rude, Yi Lanshan said after seeing Yi Shiwen's first sentence. It's nothing. I was presumptuous and came without an invitation, Yi Shiwen quickly said. May I know why Brother Yi has visited so many times? Yi Lanshan did not linger on this question any longer and went straight to the point. It's like this. I heard that you bought a stalk of dustless mana grass some time ago. Is this true? Yi Shiwen asked. Yes, that's true, Yi Lanshan replied after a brief moment of recollection. Are you here for that? That's right. I'm going to refine a pill, and I'm lacking this ingredient. Therefore, I'd like to ask you to part with it. Is that possible? About this dustless sweet dew grass is very important to me. I'm currently refining a pill, and I need this as a catalyst, Yi Lanshan said with some difficulty. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed, but then he thought it was normal. Yi Lanshan must have had some use for it. Otherwise, how could she have bought it? Although he knew this was the case, he still chose to visit a few times to see if there was a chance before he received a positive reply. Brother Yi seems to be in urgent need of this dustless sweet dew grass. Yi Lanshan saw Yi Shiwen's expression and couldn't help but ask. Yes. Yi Shiwen nodded. This dustless sweet dew grass is very important to me. If you're willing to part with it, I'm willing to pay double the price. Yi Shiwen heard Yi Lanshan's words and quickly said, If that's the case, then let's do it this way. I have a matter that I need your help with. If you agree, then I won't take a single cent of this dustless sweet dew grass. Just consider it as revenge. How about it? Yi Lanshan suddenly said. Seeing that there was hope, Yi Shiwen's spirit was immediately lifted. He quickly said, May I know what kind of matter it is? How can I help? It's like this. Brother Yi, although you've just arrived, but you should know about the 100th secret territory. Yi Lanshan bit her lower lip and said, I know. Yi Shiwen nodded. Wasn't that the exchange built on the 100th planet? As a whole, it formed the 100th secret territory. It's related to this? That's right. The 100th secret territory is a very special existence in the entire human secret territory because the planet beneath it is very big. It's comparable to the Earth's secret territory or even the Heaven's secret territory. It said that it wasn't originally a secret territory in the human secret territory, but a secret territory in the heaven secret territory. However, it was later moved into the human secret territory by someone with great magical power. Yi Lanshan said, "There are many indigenous creatures living on this 100th planet. There are even heaven realm experts among them. However, our Yi clan's elders have set up a formation. Therefore, no matter how strong their cultivation is, they can only be imprisoned there. It's impossible for them to break out of this planet. Moreover, this planet is rich in resources and spiritual energy. Therefore, many people use this planet as a training ground. Some time ago, I also organized a small team to go there. However, I didn't expect that we would encounter an expert from the indigenous civilization. The other party was a tyrannical expert. We were no match for him at all. We fought and retreated and finally escaped. However, one of our sisters fell into their hands. Now, we have to go back and rescue them. Therefore, I want to ask Brother Yi for help. How about it?" Yi Lanshan said, "As long as you're willing to help, then I'm willing to give you the dustless sweet dew grass." "How about it? I'm not trying to shirk my responsibility. However, Miss Lanshan, I can see that you're invincible under the heaven realm with your strength. Even you aren't a match for him. Could it be that a heaven realm expert has taken action?" Yi Xuan thought for a moment and said, "The dustless sweet dew grass was indeed very tempting. However, it wasn't worth it to take such a risk for the sake of the dustless sweet dew grass." Yi Lanshan smiled bitterly and said, "I also thought that with my strength, I wouldn't be afraid of anyone. However, I didn't expect that I was just a frog in a well. I didn't know that there's always a higher mountain. Although that person is a native and hasn't stepped into the heaven realm, his strength is above mine. I was completely suppressed by him. That's why we were defeated in the end." Yi Xuan was somewhat stunned. There was no need to mention Yi Lanshan's strength. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to occupy the fifth secret realm. However, even she was completely suppressed. One could imagine how tyrannical this native was. Even if he hadn't stepped into the heaven realm, he was probably close to it. This kind of enemy could definitely be considered powerful. I don't have much confidence in rescuing my sisters by myself. That's why I need to ask Brother Yi for help. I've also heard that you defeated Yin Taiping before. I don't doubt Brother Ye's strength. Although that native is tyrannical, if you and I join forces, it's still enough to defeat him." Yi Lanshan said, "So that's how it is. However, I think the safest way to deal with such a powerful master is to invite a celestial realm master. In that case, no matter how tyrannical his strength is, it is impossible for him to be a match for a celestial realm master. The difference in strength between a half-step heaven realm expert and a heaven realm expert was like heaven and earth. It was impossible to break through. Even if he were to face the weakest heaven realm expert now, he could only flee. It was impossible for him to be a match for a heaven realm expert. He didn't believe that Yi Lanshan wouldn't even know a heaven realm expert after being famous for so many years. Moreover, she had so many admirers, and there was no lack of heaven realm experts among them. It wouldn't be difficult at all. This is the difficult part. Although this planet has been arranged by our Yi clan's ancestor, and those natives can't escape, there are also tyrannical heaven realm experts among them. As long as our Yi clan's heaven realm experts enter, they will be surrounded and attacked by these native heaven realm experts. At that time, not to mention saving people, even protecting ourselves will be very difficult." Yi Lanshan said with a slightly bitter smile. Yi Xuan was stunned. So there was such a reason. No wonder. There were native celestial realm experts in the 100th mystery territory. There were also many treasures there. Even if celestial realm experts wanted to explore it, they would be able to do so. However, in fact, Yi Xuan only saw half-step celestial realm experts at the exchange center. He didn't see a single celestial realm expert. So there was such a reason. Even heaven realm experts didn't want to throw their lives away. If they went to the 100th secret realm, wouldn't it be no different from throwing their lives away? So there aren't many people I can find now. That native expert is very strong, stronger than us. Ordinary people won't be able to help at all. However, if the two of us join forces, we should be able to suppress this native expert. Yi Lanshan said at this time. Yi Shiwen thought for a moment. There was naturally no need to mention the dangers in the 100th secret realm. Not to mention the Heaven Realm experts. Just the expert who could suppress Yi Lanshan and make her retreat repeatedly was already an extremely terrifying existence. There was no need to mention the dangers of this trip. However, if he were to give up, he was somewhat unwilling. There was finally news of dustless sweetgrass. He didn't want to give up at this time. Otherwise, he didn't know how long it would take for him to refine medicinal pellets. After thinking about it again and again, he still said to Yi Lanshan, "All right, I'll go with you and do my best to save your sister." "That's great. Let's go now. As for the dustless sweetgrass, I'll have someone send it to the first secret realm," Yi Lanshan said with a smile on her face. On Chapter 1346. Seeing that Yi Shiwen agreed, Yi Lanshan didn't delay any further. She immediately asked someone to send the dustless sweetgrass to human secret realm number 1. Then the two of them immediately set off. At this time, it was only the two of them, so their speed was naturally extremely fast. It didn't take long for them to arrive at planet number 100. The two of them quickly entered the atmosphere. Instantly, Yi Shiwen felt a wave of spiritual energy rushing towards him. He also felt that the gravity of this place was more than 10 times that of ordinary places. No wonder the ferocious beasts and aborigines produced in this place were so ferocious. It should be known that not all planets could produce life. Among the planets that produce life, only a very small portion could evolve into a supernatural civilization. There were many of such stars in the sky of the ancient Barrens continent. These stars naturally looked tiny when compared to the ancient Barrens continent. However, every one of them was like a planet like Earth in his previous life. Many of them were even humongous. Many of these stars were inhabited by life. However, they hadn't evolved into a world. Just like the true Martial domain, no matter how small it was still a world, and a planet was still a planet. Some of the strange aborigines that evolved on these planets had also become the prey of many people. There was still a profession called the Star Hunter in this world. They specialized in hunting the powerful aborigines on various planets and then sold them. However, for the Yi clan to directly capture a planet and bring it into secret realm number 1, it was something that many people didn't even dare to think about in the outside world, let alone doing it. This in itself was enough to drive people crazy. The depth of the Yi clan's foundation could be seen from this. It was simply unimaginable. The aborigines on these planets were also captured and imprisoned here. For generations, they could only become the training targets of the Yi clan's descendants. Although it was a little pitiful, in this world, natural selection itself was the principle. There was nothing strange about it. This planet number 100 is so huge, and we still can't alert those Heaven Realm experts. How are we going to find your sister who was captured? Yi Shiwen asked. The planet was too big. It should not have appeared in the human secret realm. It should have appeared in the Earth secret realm or the Heaven secret realm. Although the two of them were slightly stronger, they were still able to find a person if they wanted to. However, they couldn't alarm the native experts of this world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. Don't worry, although I retreated at that time, I still left some people behind to follow them. I will come back to look for reinforcements. As long as I can find the people who stayed behind to follow them, I will naturally find those natives. Yi Lanshan said. Yi Shiwen nodded. Yi Lanshan was a very meticulous person, unlike many people who were careless and impatient. In that kind of situation where they were being hunted down, it was impossible for her to make such a meticulous arrangement. Yi Lanshan pinched her hands and soon seemed to have confirmed the whereabouts of her subordinates. She flew straight in that direction with Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen followed Yi Lanshan closely and flew all the way into a valley. Soon, he saw Yi Lanshan's subordinates. At this time, they all looked quite embarrassed. A man and two women seemed to have some injuries. At this time, when they saw Yi Lanshan appear, they were immediately happy, thinking that she had called for reinforcements. However, when they looked at Yi Shiwen again, their faces immediately fell. Yi Shiwen naturally knew why their expressions changed like this. They must have looked down on his strength. However, this was also very normal. unless they saw Yi Shiwen's combat strength with their own eyes. Otherwise, who would believe that a mere law phase 9th level's combat strength could actually be comparable to a half-step heaven realm expert, and was even one of the best? For many people, this was undoubtedly like the Arabian Nights. At this time, one of the two women came forward and said, "Sister Lanshan, you are finally back." At this time, one of the two women came forward and said, "This is the helper I invited back this time, Yi Shiwen, brother Yi. He is the new owner of the human secret realm." Yi Lanshan could still sense the emotions of her subordinates, so she could clearly see that these people seemed to be very disappointed in Yi Shiwen, so she could not help but say this. These three people originally did not take Yi Shiwen seriously, but after hearing Yi Lanshan's words, they immediately looked at Yi Shiwen in a new light. The human secret realm number 1. Just these 6 words alone were a golden signboard. Anyone who could be the owner of the secret realm was a talent among people, and none of them could compare to them. Although they still did not know how strong Yi Shiwen was, since he was the owner of the human secret realm number 1, and Yi Lanshan had solemnly invited him back, they were afraid that he should also have some skills. Thinking of this, the three immediately restrained their expressions. "These are my 3 subordinates." Yi Lanshan gave a rough introduction to Yi Shiwen. Among the 3 of them, the man was called Feng Jijie, not a member of the Yi clan, but a follower she had recruited outside. His strength had already reached the level of half-step celestial realm late stage. As for the other 2 women, they were both disciples of the Yi clan, called Yi Jiaojiao and Yi Xiuying. They were all followers who had followed her for many years, and their strength was very strong. They had already stepped into the level of half-step celestial realm late stage, because those who were not strong enough had already been killed in the previous battle. After the introduction, Yi Lanshan could not help but ask, "What's the situation now?" At this time, Yi Jiaojiao said, "They are currently 100 miles away, and we dare not get too close in case they discover us. It seems that they're going to send our sisters to their tribe now." At this time, Yi Jiaojiao said, "Not good. If we wait until they send our sisters to the tribe, then it will be really bad. These tribes all have celestial realm masters in charge. If we are sent to the tribe, we will definitely have no chance." Yi Lanshan's expression changed greatly and said, "So we must take advantage of the fact that they have not returned to the tribe and directly take back our sisters. Otherwise, everything will be too late, and once we are sent back to the tribe, our sisters will inevitably be humiliated by those barbaric aborigines. Instead of that, it is better for us to send them on their way." Yi Lanshan said decisively, with a murderous look. In her opinion, rather than being humiliated by those aborigines, it was better to die. However, her sisters were certainly unable to commit suicide now, so they could only send them on their way. Yi Shiwen knew that the fate of the captive woman had already been decided. It would be best if she could be rescued, but if she could not, then she could only die. Yi Shiwen sighed. For the captive woman, perhaps, death could be regarded as a kind of relief. Sometimes this was also an extremely helpless way of doing things. Although it was helpless, there was no other way. "What do these aborigines look like?" Yi Shiwen asked. "There is no difference between these aborigines and us. The only difference is that they have 4 eyes and 2 more on our eyebrows. That's why we call them the 4-eyed race." Yi Lanshan explained to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was not surprised. There were thousands of lives in this world, and there were many kinds, but there was no doubt that the human form was undoubtedly the final direction of evolution. No matter what kind of race, as long as they developed a civilization, most of them would be in human form. Even if they were not in human form, they would eventually change into human form. Just like the 100 Race Alliance, there were many strange people among them, but they were all in human form. The so-called human form was the innate Taoism form that many warriors cultivated to achieve. The closer one was to this innate Taoism form. The higher the degree of enlightenment, the higher the level of civilization, and the more powerful their strength would be. Take the devil race, for example. Although many of the devil race looked strange, those top-notch devil race members were no different from ordinary humans. In fact, many of them were even more handsome than humans. However, some of them would still leave behind some characteristics of their race. The human race was the only known race that was born with the innate Taoism body, and other races were more or less different. Therefore, the origin of the human race had always been a matter of speculation. Yes, these aborigines have also developed a considerable civilization, but as long as our sisters fall into their hands, almost without exception, they will be raped. If they are brought back to the tribe, they may even be gang raped. Yi Jiaojiao said while gritting her teeth. For women, this was undoubtedly a great humiliation. I know what they are thinking. They want to use this method to make our sisters give birth to their children and then continue to mix their blood and finally find a way to mix with us so that they can escape from this planet one day in the future. However, they are obviously frogs looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. They have no idea how powerful our Yi clan is. So, what if their planet revolts collectively? If they really annoy us, we can obliterate them in minutes. Yi Xiaoying continued. Her tone was extremely cold, and she also hated these aborigines very much. Yi Xuan sighed. This was a war of life and death between two races, but this race was obviously sad because their opponent was a colossus like the Yi clan. The hidden strength of the Yi clan was 100 times, 1,000 times more tyrannical than they thought. Even if they had 10 times more celestial realm masters, they would still not be a match for the Yi clan. Chapter 1347. This was the fundamental difference in strength between the two sides. However, he quickly restrained his emotions. After all, the strong preyed on the weak. This was the iron law of this world. Right now, we are not far from their tribe, so we must act as soon as possible. However, it is a little strange. This group of natives has been moving very slowly recently. I don't know what happened. Fang Jijia said. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Yi Xuan frowned and asked. This made Yi Lanshan a little hesitant. As the saying goes, there must be a demon behind this abnormal behavior. This matter was indeed very strange. Generally speaking, if they had captured their sisters, they should have rushed back to the clan as soon as possible to avoid the revenge of these Yi clan experts. Even if the leader of the natives was very strong and had a lot of confidence in himself, he wouldn't have done this. Yi Xuan's words made it seem that this matter was indeed a bit fishy. Thinking of this, Yi Lanshan didn't have that much confidence anymore. She couldn't help but say, this matter does seem a little strange. But no matter what, we must intercept them before they return to their tribe. Yi Lanshan also knew that Yi Xuan was right. However, at this time, things had already reached this point. It was no longer up to her to back out. I would like to ask, how far are we from their tribes? Yi Xuan asked. On this planet, the four-eyed race had developed quite a bit of civilization. However, there were many forms of civilization. Some of them were in the form of tribes, and some of them were in the form of countries with vast territories. According to their current speed, there are at least 10 days left. Although Fang Jijia was a little puzzled by Yi Xuan's question, he still answered. Then, we will attack on the 9th day, Yi Xuan said. Why? Yi Jiaojiao asked. The others also looked at Yi Xuan. Even Yi Lanshan looked at Yi Xuan strangely. She didn't know why he said this. Because this is the time when they are the most relaxed. Although I don't know why they are moving so slowly, the closer they are to their tribe, the less vigilant they will be. People are always like this. On the 10th day, we are too close to their tribe. We won't have enough time to get rid of them. It may attract a surprise attack from their tribe experts. At that time, we will be completely annihilated. So, this time is the best time. We don't need to be in a hurry. Yi Xuan said. The others thought about it. Indeed, Yi Xuan's words were right. This might be the time when they were the most relaxed. On the contrary, if they were always vigilant, it wouldn't matter if they attacked earlier or later. Yi Xuan's idea immediately made everyone look at him with a whole new level of respect. Originally, they didn't think much of Yi Xuan. But now it seemed that Yi Xuan wasn't an idiot. In other words, how could the master of the human secret realm number 1 be a good-for-nothing? Even if he was not strong enough, it might be because he had only cultivated for a short period of time. It was unlikely that he was a good-for-nothing. Since they were not in a hurry to save people, they were not in a hurry to attack. Instead, they hid in the valley. Yi Shiwen also took advantage of these 10 days to completely start cultivating. This was a little strange for Yi Lanshan and the others. Yi Shiwen could even use such a short time. What could he do in just a few days? What they didn't know was that Yi Shiwen had just entered the 9th level of the Law Phase realm. Now, he was still a distance away from the peak of the 9th level. His cultivation had already reached the required level long ago, and the only thing he lacked now was the accumulation of experience. Yi Shiwen had just obtained 10 billion spirit crystals from Yi Yuing, and this was like a good rain after a long drought. It had completely solved his urgent need. He immediately seized all the time he had to cultivate. In the past year, although his strength did not improve, in fact, after soaking in the potion, his meridians had expanded. In other words, he was like an empty water tank that needed a large amount of water to be poured in. In this regard, Yi Shiwen, who now had tens of billions of spirit crystals, did not lack this at all. 9 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 9 days, Yi Shiwen did not move at all. There were no changes. Even his aura was not much. It was as if he had died. It was not until the 9th day that Yi Shiwen opened his eyes as if he had just woken up from a dream. For some reason, Yi Lanshan felt that Yi Shiwen seemed to have undergone a huge change compared to 9 days ago. However, she couldn't tell what the change was. This made her a little curious. She didn't know what changes Yi Shiwen had undergone in these 9 days. In this regard, Yi Shiwen had nothing to say. In just 9 days, he had used up a total of 2 billion spirit crystals. Time's up. Let's go. Yi Lanshan said. Yes. The 5 of them immediately set off and flew out. As the four-eyed race expert's speed was quite limited, they had already caught up with the four-eyed race team in less than half a day. This was a team of about a dozen people from the four-eyed race. This team did not have a lot of people. There were about 20 of them in total. The leader was about 2 meters tall. He had a strong body and 4 sharp eyes. It was the native expert Feng Wui who had beaten Yi Lanshan to the point of retreating. At this time, Feng Wui was at the front of the team. He stood tall and straight like a pine tree. In the middle of the team, there was a rather disheveled woman who was completely tied up in a cart. However, the strange thing was that according to Yi Lanshan, if a human woman was captured by the four-eyed race, she would inevitably be raped. However, this woman didn't seem to be raped at all. Suddenly, there was a frenzied spiritual energy in the sky. Then a big hand directly grabbed the prison card in the team. Oh, they're finally here. At this time, Feng Wui directly made his move. The long sword in his hand instantly cut through the sky. The sword light directly cut the big hand into pieces, not giving it any chance to fight back. Attack! At this time, Yi Lanshan shouted. At this time, several people quickly rushed down. She directly pounced on Feng Wui, wanting to hold him back. Meanwhile, Yi Shiwen and the others directly pounced on the prison card. At this time, a few experts from the four-eyed race also directly pounced on them. Unexpectedly, all of them were experts in the late stage of half-step celestial realm. One of them directly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. With a sinister smile, he ruthlessly smashed a huge iron hammer in his hand towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! Yi Shiwen raised his hand, and the huge iron hammer ruthlessly smashed on Yi Shiwen's arm. With a loud explosion, the entire iron hammer exploded on the spot. This is impossible. How could my iron hammer explode? At this time, he was simply scared out of his wits. In fact, he was almost scared to tears. His iron hammer was also a magic tool. God knows how many times it had been tempered. Although it could not be compared to the Yi clan's refining level, it was still a magic tool of the earth level. How could it be used to smash someone and even smash himself? Go ask Hades. Yi Shiwen sneered. In an instant, a long sword instantly appeared in his hand. The sword light suddenly flashed. The expert's head directly fell on the spot. Blood spurted out like a pillar. This expert in the late stage of half-step celestial realm could not stop him at all. This caused Yi Jiaojiao and the others to almost be dumbfounded. They completely could not believe that Yi Shiwen could actually so easily kill an expert in the late stage of half-step celestial realm. If it were them, Even with the advantage of martial arts and magic tools, it would not be easy to deal with this expert. These aborigines were born with divine strength, and it was very difficult to deal with them. At this time, they finally somewhat understood why Yi Lanshan asked Yi Shiwen to come. However, they did not know that even Yi Lanshan did not know that Yi Shiwen was actually so tyrannical. Whoosh! Poochie! 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 Yi Shiwen was like a peerless god of slaughter. Wherever he went, the aborigines there would completely collapse. The sword light in his hand flashed. He never used a second sword. Whether it was a master in the half-step celestial realm or a master in the law manifestation realm, there seemed to be no difference. They were all trash that could be directly stabbed to death with a sword. Yi Shiwen killed all the way to the side of this prisoner carriage. After directly splitting the prisoner carriage with a sword, he rescued the person. Be careful. They have an ambush. This was the first thing that this woman said after being rescued by Yi Shiwen. Only now you know. It is already too late. At this time, a savage laughter came from afar. Then a group of over 100 people actually quickly rushed from afar. In just a moment, they had surrounded everyone. They saw that among these people, the weakest was actually a master in the half-step celestial realm. Among them, the leader was actually even more majestic than Feng Wui. He was a full 5 meters tall. Looking from afar, he was simply like a majestic gorilla. The bursting aura on this person was not much weaker than Feng Wui. It was also very terrifying. Seeing such a lineup of ambushes, the expressions of Yi Jiaojiao and the others immediately turned pale. And looking at Yi Lanshan, who was forced into a disadvantageous position by Feng Wui, at this time, also suddenly turned pale. If it was only Feng Wui, she still had confidence, because there was still Yi Shiwen who had not joined in yet. If it was only Feng Wui, she still had confidence, because there was still Yi Shiwen who had not joined in yet. But if there was another one, then even if she and Yi Shiwen joined forces, they might not be able to win. She had already thought of the most tragic ending. These aborigines that looked like gorillas made her feel disgusted. Was she really going to be humiliated by these people? Chapter 1348. She couldn't help but tremble as she thought of this. She regretted that she hadn't calculated everything earlier. She hadn't thought much about it when Yi Shiwen had said that there were some suspicious points. Now, she had fallen into the trap of these four-eyed people. The four-eyed race was also an intelligent race. Their intelligence wasn't inferior to that of humans. Why didn't they think more about it? But what could they do at this time? This was clearly a trap to lure them out on their own. Ha ha, Feng Wui, this woman in front of you, I Feng Si, want her. At this moment, the 2-meter-tall four-eyed man laughed and said. The women trembled slightly at this time. They hadn't done anything yet, but they had already begun to divide them up. How could they not feel humiliated? But no matter how humiliated they were, they couldn't do anything about it because their lives were now in the hands of others, and it was not their turn to refute. Give birth to a few children. If one of them looks like a human, I'll send him to the human world as a spy. The man laughed and said, You guys are delusional. As long as you are a member of the four-eyed race, it's impossible to pass through the formation in the atmosphere. Feng Jijie shouted. That's hard to say. Anyway, they are hybrids born with humans. It's not a big deal if they die. The man said coldly. He didn't care at all. Perhaps, in his opinion, they were hybrids born with humans. It was not a big deal if they died. The four-eyed race couldn't pass through the formation in the atmosphere. They would be killed on the spot by the energy in the formation if they were detected to be a member of the four-eyed race. Therefore, the four-eyed race had been trapped on this planet for so many years. They couldn't escape. Originally, they didn't even think that there was a world outside. However, ever since they were captured by the Yi clan, they knew that there were many wonderful worlds outside. However, from the day they were captured, they had already become slaves. They couldn't go out at all. They could only become the training targets of the Yi clan's disciples. At most, they could only break the spirit-gathering formation set up by the Yi family to vent their anger. But there was no way to change their weak status. Therefore, they came up with the idea of having children with human women. Some of the children looked like humans, so they tried to see if they could pass through the formation in the atmosphere. Although they had all failed, many people of the four-eyed race believed that it was because the human bloodline was not pure enough. However, it did not matter. Sooner or later, someone with a pure bloodline would appear. Over the years, many human women had been taken away and turned into reproductive tools. Of course, the four-eyed race had also faced the Yi clan's revenge many times. Many countries and tribes had been destroyed, and the grudges between them had long been too numerous to count. Are you still going to rely on that stupid method? Didn't I already say that this method is useless? If we want to break the formation, we can only rely on our own strength. As long as we are strong enough, we can break the formation and regain our freedom. Feng Wui said coldly, as if he didn't agree with Feng Xi's idea. That was because he represented the other faction of the four-eyed race. These people did not approve of using such a method at all. The only thing they believed in was their own strength. They believed that as long as they relied on their own hands, they would be able to break the formation sooner or later. It doesn't matter, as long as we can get out. When the time comes, I will go on a killing spree over there, Feng Xi said with a strange smile. You are really ignorant. Where do you think you will be after you get out? That is the Yi clan's most elite place. There are Heaven Realm experts there. Do you think you can escape after getting out? Yi Lanshan couldn't help but ridicule. That is none of your business. At this time, Feng Wui coldly snorted and directly sent Yi Lanshan flying with a blow. His strength was a level higher than Yi Lanshan's. Previously, he alone was enough to suppress Yi Lanshan. Now, there was also Feng Xi, a top-notch expert who was almost on par with Feng Wui. Go, capture them all, and bring them back to the tribe, Feng Wui said coldly. Obviously, he was also a bold person. He was not moved by Yi Lanshan's words at all. You all be careful. Break out of the encirclement together. If you can break out of it, then count it as one. At this time, Yi Lanshan hurriedly said, Today, I have let you all down. I have put you all in a dangerous situation. In Yi Shiwen, this matter originally had nothing to do with you. But now, you have become a mortal enemy. You can escape. If you have a way to escape, you must inform the people outside. You must kill everyone in this tribe to avenge us. Yi Lanshan was indeed worthy of being called a heroine. At this critical moment, she didn't have that kind of emotion from before. Instead, her eyes were filled with the determination to die. She was extremely crazy. She was even thinking of slaughtering this entire tribe in the future. Sure enough, the complexions of the four-eyed race's people suddenly changed when they heard her words. They were all frightened when they heard Yi Lanshan's words. After all, this kind of thing wasn't rare. In fact, it happened quite often, although they could often capture some humans as captives, but generally speaking, the humans still held the absolute advantage. Moreover, the Yi clan's people were all elites. They were arrogant and unruly. They couldn't tolerate even the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Slaughtering tribes and nations was a common thing. And if they were allowed to escape, then they would most likely attract the revenge of many experts of the Yi clan. There was no doubt about this. Their complexions couldn't help but change when they thought of this. Don't let any of them escape. At this time, Feng Wui gritted his teeth and said. Feng Xi also agreed with him. It was rare for them to reach a consensus on this matter. Go! At this time, the experts of the four-eyed race rushed towards Yi Shiwen's group. Let's go! Kill as many as we can. Feng Jijie roared at this time. It's not over yet. Why are you all so nervous? These people of the four-eyed race are simply courting death. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, Good boy, you have guts. Feng Wui, you stop that little bitch. Leave this boy to me. At this time, Feng Xi sneered and instantly rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. He grabbed with his big hand, and it seemed as if he was going to grab the entire sky. A barbarian chi pervaded the air and transformed into a huge gasified hand in the void. It seemed as if this hand was going to grab Yi Shiwen and explode him. Feng Xi sneered at Yi Shiwen. He didn't give him any room to escape. Yi Shiwen didn't move at all. He just let this huge hand grab him. At this critical moment, every pore of his body began to spew out sword lights. These sword lights condensed into a huge light sword above his head. Suddenly, this light sword chopped down on the spot. Boom! The sword light fiercely chopped that huge hand. The huge hand was instantly chopped and exploded. It couldn't block this sword light's move, and it exploded. The spirit energy splashed in all directions. Impossible. This is impossible. Feng Shi looked at Yi Shiwen in horror. He couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen was so powerful. He was just a kid at the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm. How could he be so tyrannical? It's my turn. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and directly rushed in front of Feng Shi. The iron sword in his hand directly stabbed out. There was nothing fancy about it. It was just a straight sword. However, this straight sword seemed to pierce through the void of the universe and the end of time. It directly went towards Feng Shi's throat, and it seemed as if it was going to stab him to death on the spot. Its speed was extremely fast. It was as fast as lightning. Damn it! At this time, Feng Shi let out a loud roar and stopped retreating. He was not a benevolent person, but he had been frightened by Yi Shiwen a moment ago. Now that he had stabilized his footing, the blood and qi in his body instantly surged up, and a phantom of the barbarian god suddenly appeared behind him. At this moment, he looked incomparably tyrannical, just like a demon god. With the help of that huge force, the barbarian god behind him, whose entire body was covered with eyes, directly roared and blasted a punch towards Yi Shiwen. At the same time, all the eyes on his body opened, bursting with endless light. Each eye shot out a ray of light. At this time, there were thousands of rays of light in the sky, almost shooting Yi Shiwen into a hornet's nest. At this time, the phantom of 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron appeared in front of Yi Shiwen's body, even though its body had been taken away by Old Yi to refine medicinal herbs. Although the main body had been taken by Old Yi to boil medicinal herbs, this condensed shadow was also extremely powerful. Clang, clang, clang. The crisp sound of metal rang out. These rays of light bombarded the shadow of the 8 treasures cauldron, but they couldn't advance at all. They couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. At the same time, a sword aura began to rise in Yi Shiwen's hand, and as time passed, it grew larger and larger. Soon, it became a giant sword that was dozens of feet tall. Immediately after, this giant sword directly slashed out countless sword lights, directly slashing towards the huge shadow of the thousand-eyed barbarian god. Boom! The shadow of the thousand-eyed barbarian god was pierced through by the gigantic sword light. The thousand-eyed barbarian god roared and screamed, but there was nothing it could do. This sword light had nailed him to the ground, and he couldn't move at all. After a while, the shadow of the thousand-eyed barbarian god began to shatter inch by inch. Then, with a loud bang, it suddenly exploded, turning into spirit energy that filled the sky. Chapter 1349. This was a special martial arts cultivation method of the Four-Eyed Clan. Usually, after summoning the thousand-eyed barbarian god Shadow, the person's strength would be raised to the extreme. However, Yi Shiwen had nailed him to the ground with a single sword strike. To them, this was undoubtedly a huge shock. The key was that although Feng Shi's cultivation was not as good as Feng Wui's, he was already one of the strongest in the clan. Apart from the few old monsters of the celestial realm who had not come out for 10,000 years, he was already one of the strongest. However, in front of this ninth sky of Transcendence Realm kid, he was actually in such a sorry state. At this time, Feng Shi's face was simply pale. His barbarian god shadow was broken. For him, it was equivalent to a great loss of power, and the impact was very great. Seeing Yi Shiwen's invincible power, Feng Wui also wanted to join the battle against Yi Shiwen. However, at this time, Yi Lanshan, who had finally seen some hope, would not let him do as he wished. She hurriedly stopped Feng Wui. Although Yi Lanshan's strength was slightly inferior to Feng Wui's, after all, it was not a huge gap. Although she could not defeat Feng Wui, it was enough to stop him. The last time, Yi Lanshan escaped from Feng Wui's hands unscathed was the best proof. If he attacked with all his strength, Even Feng Wui would not be able to do anything to Yi Lanshan in a short period of time. He could only watch helplessly as Feng Shi and Yi Shiwen continued fighting. After Yi Jiaojiao, Feng Jijie, and the other two saw hope of survival, they began to crazily fight with all their might. It was not easy to see a glimmer of hope, and when these people erupted, it was also very exaggerated. Yi Shiwen's expression was as usual. This was the result of these 9 days of cultivation. For ordinary people, perhaps 9 days was not enough time, but for Yi Shiwen, 9 days was enough for his strength to increase by a large margin in one go. Although he had not yet reached the peak of the 9th sky of Transcendence Realm, there was no doubt that he had made great progress. If it was 9 days ago, at most, there was not much difference between him and Feng Shi. This Feng Shi's strength was not much different from Yin Taiping's after his strength had greatly increased, maybe even slightly stronger. If it was 9 days ago, it was already very difficult for him and Yi Lanshan to escape unscathed, not to mention rescuing them and annihilating this small team of martial artists. How can he be so powerful? Let's fight! Feng Shi shouted loudly at this time. His forehead was densely covered with cold sweat. He let out a loud roar and instantly threw a punch towards Yi Shiwen. This fist pierced through the sky. It possessed a terrifying, penetrating power. It wanted to blast Yi Shiwen into pieces in an instant. "Break for me!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. He raised the iron sword in his hand, and an astonishing sword key instantly cut through the vast sky. Puchi! The sword chi instantly cut open his fist. Fresh blood gushed out from his wound. The sword light pierced through the sky. It was like a sword dragon devouring everything. What power! How can he be so strong? Isn't he just at the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm? Countless people in the surroundings exclaimed in surprise. "Ha!" Feng Shi roared and punched out again. Although he had been injured in the previous exchange, he had no other choice at this time. Boom! The aftermath of the battle between the two spread out like waves, sweeping in all directions. The mountains within a radius of 100 miles were instantly razed to the ground. One could imagine the terrifying combat power of both sides. Both sides did not hold back at all. They attacked ruthlessly right from the start. Immediately after that, a scream was heard. Everyone looked over and saw Feng Shi sweating profusely. His right arm had been completely crippled and was hanging limply by his side like a piece of trash. This undoubtedly frightened many people, especially those from the Four-Eyed Clan. They all knew very well how tyrannical Feng Shi was, especially his physical body, which was even more powerful. Although size and strength might not necessarily be directly proportional, it was the case for Feng Shi. His most tyrannical aspect was his physical body. A punch could flatten a mountain range, but now his arm had been broken. Yi Shiwen's strength was simply terrifying. His physical body was comparable to gold and iron, but at this time, his bones were broken by Yi Shiwen's sword. Yes, it was broken, not cut. If it was only cut, it would not be a big deal. However, it was broken alive. In other words, in terms of strength, Feng Shi had completely lost to Yi Shiwen. This made everyone's eyes widen, especially the few masters of the Yi family. They did not expect Yi Shiwen to be so tyrannical. They could not imagine that Feng Shi, who was almost as strong as Yi Lanshan, could be so easily suppressed. At this time, they remembered Yi Shiwen's other identity. He was the master of the #1 secret realm. In the past, the master of the secret realm was the king of the #1 secret realm, and Yi Shiwen was the same. Originally, everyone thought that he was only at the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm and was unlikely to reach the top. Now, it seemed that there was absolutely hope for him to become the king. And Yi Lanshan's face was also full of disbelief. Strong. Yi Shiwen was too strong in this state. He definitely had a chance to compete for the position of the king of the #1 secret realm. Fortunately, she did not put on any airs in front of him. Otherwise, this matter would not end well. Feng Wui could not help but be horrified. No matter how strong Feng Shi was, he should not have been defeated like this. Humph! Yi Shiwen attacked again, directly pouncing towards Feng Shi. "Damned human! I'll fight you to the death!" Feng Shi roared. He suddenly grabbed with his remaining arm and grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. He had already concentrated all the power in his body into this arm. Insignificant skill. Sky-shaking technique. Yi Shiwen sneered and directly pointed a finger. This finger directly broke through the horizon, causing the entire sky to sink into a violent tremor. There was a moment of silence. Yi Shiwen's finger pointed at his left fist. Bang! Immediately after, a terrifying power vibrated and boiled within it. Feng Shi's entire arm exploded like a watermelon on the spot. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. It was even more miserable than his right hand, directly exploding on the spot. Ah! Feng Shi let out a blood-curdling scream that shook the heavens and the earth. His figure was directly sent flying. This time, he had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. One of his arms was crippled, and the other was completely blown up. Even if he wanted to heal such a serious injury, it would not be easy. After Feng Shi was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's finger, he did not stop and immediately began to flee for his life. At this time, he finally realized that this ninth heavens of the Transcendence Realm kid was a truly terrifying demon. He was probably even more tyrannical than Feng Wui. Otherwise, how could his arms have been blown up on the spot? "Where do you think you're going?" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and took a step forward to catch up with him. He immediately pointed his finger, and it transformed into a huge Lingqi cage in the void and directly enveloped the sealed cultivator. The speed at which this cage descended was extremely fast. Feng Shi did not even have time to react before he was directly trapped by this cage. Under this finger, Feng Shi struggled violently, but it was useless. He could not struggle at all. Yi Shiwen was like a bottomless pit. No matter how much strength he exerted, Yi Shiwen was always stronger than him. Finally, Yi Shiwen directly pointed a finger at him and enveloped him. Yi Shiwen's finger was like a millstone that could destroy the world, ruthlessly smashing down on the spot. Bang! Feng Shi did not struggle at all. There was nothing he could do. He was directly ground into meat paste. It was extremely miserable. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen's body directly projected a bloody light, sweeping away all the blood and absorbing it into the Tianyuan mirror. Seeing that Yi Shiwen had easily beheaded Feng Shi, the Yi family could not help but feel inspired. Now, not only could they survive, but they could also turn around and kill them. This time, they were ambushed and almost completely annihilated. Coupled with the tragic deaths of many of their companions, they had long been enraged. Now that such a good opportunity had presented itself, they naturally would not let it go so easily. Yi Shiwen directly crossed the battlefield and rushed in front of Feng Wui, saying, "Leave this to me. You go and deal with the others." All right. Yi Lanshan was also happy to be able to escape easily. Although it could be said that she was completely suppressed in front of Feng Wui, with her strength, it was not a problem for her to deal with the others. Even if it was Feng Shi, at most, he would be on par with her. Feng Wui also did not continue to entangle with Yi Lanshan. After all, the situation would become even more grim for him if he were to leave Yi Lanshan behind. Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength could be seen from the fight between him and Feng Shi. Yi Shiwen was merely standing there, but he was already giving off an extremely strong, invisible pressure. Even if he did not do anything, his imposing aura was still very oppressive. However, he was not an ordinary person. Although he was afraid of Yi Shiwen, he was only afraid and nothing more. He didn't have any delay because Yi Lanshan had already started a massacre. If he couldn't kill Yi Shiwen in a short time, then his subordinates and the elites of his tribe would all be slaughtered. The strength of these tribes was far from being comparable to a powerful force like the Yi family. These were the elites of their tribes. If they lost too many of them, then the foundation of the existence of the entire force would be shaken. And then they might even be annexed by other tribes. On the 100th planet, the conflict with the human race was secondary. After all, the human race was only here to gain experience. So, it was not a big deal even if they were tyrannical. However, those tribes were the real threat. Once they showed any signs of decline, those hostile tribes would immediately turn into bloodthirsty wolves and pounce on them. Every step was very difficult. Shwa! A flash of light flashed in his hand, and a huge scimitar appeared in his hand. Chapter 1350. The scimitar was shaped like a crescent moon, and the blade, aura, was constantly flickering. There were some ancient patterns engraved on the surface of the scimitar. It turned out to be a heaven-grade instrument. The saber chi that vibrated from the saber blade directly tore cracks in the sky, like pieces of torn cloth. Feng Wui actually had a heaven-grade instrument on him. No wonder he was so calm. For a half-step celestial realm expert, a heaven-grade instrument was undoubtedly a huge protective talisman. No matter how tyrannical Yi Shiwen was, he was confident that he could stop him. Whoosh! Feng Wui made his move. With the blade of the scimitar as the lead, he instantly pounced on Yi Shiwen. In an instant, countless shadows appeared in the void, almost covering the entire void in an instant. Yi Shiwen was trapped in the void, as if he could not move at all. Not good, Yi Shiwen, be careful. This is a heaven-grade instrument, Yi Lanshan hurriedly said. Her expression changed slightly because she knew very well how terrifying this heaven-grade instrument was. Even a celestial realm expert could be seriously injured by a heaven-grade instrument if he was not careful. Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. His hands directly tore open countless golden lights and covered his palms. In an instant, the divinity was in place, and one of his hands directly grabbed the scimitar. He was actually planning to use his bare hands to resist the heaven-grade instrument. In the eyes of Yi Lanshan and the others, this was simply crazy. Otherwise, why would he choose to use his bare hands to resist? You're courting death. Feng Wui suddenly laughed loudly when he saw that Yi Shiwen was actually planning to use his bare hands to resist. His expression was somewhat ferocious. He did not care why Yi Shiwen suddenly became stupid. This was a good opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen. Whoosh! The edge of the scimitar continued to slide down. The sharp edge of the blade was suffocating, and it cut through the void. This was a set of blade technique that could destroy heaven and earth. Clang! It was almost like the sound of metal colliding. Yi Shiwen's palm and the scimitar fiercely collided. Feng Wui's Heaven Step Machete seemed to be condensed from the principles of the Heaven Step Machete. Even the sky had no way to resist it. At this time, it was like a violent gale and a huge wave, crazily crushing down towards Yi Shiwen. However, when the golden light on his palm came into contact with the saber aura, it almost instantly shone brilliantly. The golden light covered the sky and dyed everything in the surroundings into a dazzling golden color. It was as if they had fallen into a golden kingdom. The wave of saber chi and the golden light collided fiercely in the void, but there was no terrifying explosion, because no matter what kind of fluctuations there were, they were annihilated by the fight between the two. For a moment, it was as if there was only silence. The blade directly cut through the golden waves, and then chopped Yi Shiwen's palm. Poochie! The blade cut a huge wound on Yi Shiwen's palm, and blood gushed out. It could be seen how terrifying a heaven-step divine tool was, but Yi Shiwen did not care. He directly pointed with his left hand, and the shocking sky form was thrown out and fiercely pointed towards Feng Wui. Feng Wui did not dare to be careless. He had seen the scene of Yi Shiwen electrocuting the spy to death with one finger. At this time, how could he dare to test Yi Shiwen's shocking sky form? His four eyes suddenly opened wide, and then he began to frantically dodge. The blade did not cut down, but he did not care too much. He quickly pulled out his machete to block Yi Shiwen's shocking sky form. Boom! The shocking sky form fiercely hit the blade, and countless saber auras were smashed into pieces. Thump, thump, thump. Feng Wui retreated several steps in succession. Only then was he able to neutralize the terrifying force coming from the blade's edge. He looked at Yi Shiwen with a completely different expression. His strength was truly terrifying. This was completely different from the battle between him and Feng Si. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the most, but how could the onlooker have the same feeling as the onlooker? His arm was slightly numb. Although his strength was not as good as Feng Wui's, in fact, it was not far off. However, the result was unexpectedly like this. If it was not for the heaven-step-long blade, his arm might have been fractured. At the same time, he looked at Yi Shiwen's palm in horror. Just now, his blade did not directly cut off Yi Shiwen's palm. This was also inconceivable for him. The heaven-step-long blade was also a powerful weapon for him, so he was very clear about the power of this heaven-step-long blade. It could easily cut off metal and stone, but it actually failed to cut off his palm. This was already enough to prove something. Yi Shiwen also looked at the huge wound on his palm. As he operated the Phoenix regeneration technique, the saber auras were quickly expelled. The wound no longer bled, and it was also recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. He slightly squinted his eyes, frowned, and was quite dissatisfied. It seemed that he was still lacking in a hand-to-hand fight with a heaven-step-long blade. This was not to say that the tyrant body was not powerful, but his realm was too low. If he entered the celestial being realm, then he could completely resist the strength of a heaven-step-long blade and even completely destroy it. Even if he could enter the half-step celestial being realm, the situation would be completely different. After all, there was still a difference in hardness between the flesh and the bones. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen could not help but have a stronger desire to improve his realm. However, he was also very clear that these things could not be rushed. He had to first defeat Feng Wui in front of him. "Go to hell!" Feng Wui shouted loudly, and the curved blade in his hand began to emit a buzzing sound. Countless amounts of Zhen Yuan were poured into the blade, and the blade qi began to boil like hot air. Its imposing manner was so imposing that it seemed as if it could split the world in half. Those aboriginals and the experts of Yi Clan couldn't help but be pushed away by the terrifying blade light. They only felt that their skin was being brushed by countless dreadful astral winds. The astral winds on their skin were so painful that they couldn't help but get out of the way. They didn't dare to get close to Yi Shiwen's blade light because it seemed as if it was going to behead them. At this time, only Yi Lanshan could still stand calmly. But even so, the Jin Yuan in her body suddenly appeared, automatically protecting her body. In the face of this blade attack, Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his eyes, and countless rays of light flashed in his eyes. He spread out his hands, and a golden protective wall appeared in front of him. Countless Lingqi instantly condensed above his head and transformed into a golden medicinal cauldron. 8 treasures universe cauldron. It fluctuated up and down, swallowing and spitting out divine light. Boom! This curved blade fiercely stood on the golden protective wall that Yi Shiwen had torn open, and almost in a flash, it cut Yi Shiwen's golden protective wall into pieces. Then, it fiercely stood on the phantom of 8 treasure universe cauldron. Crack! Crack! Cracks appeared on the phantom of 8 treasure universe cauldron, as if it could be cut into pieces at any time. But Yi Shiwen did not panic. He took a deep breath, and the countless violent Lingqi around him, which had been cut by the saber auras, were absorbed by him, like a dragon drinking water or the Yangtze River. Countless Lingqi wrapped around 8 treasure universe cauldron, and not only did these cracks not expand, they were also repaired in an instant. The scene looked extremely strange, but it was also extremely shocking. Impossible! Feng Wui saw this scene and could not help but roar. How could this be possible? Xiao! Then, a sharp sword light instantly cut through the sky and fiercely chopped towards Feng Wui's face. Feng Wui was suddenly shocked and hurriedly retreated, but he found that he could not move the curved blade in his hand, as if it was being held in place by a huge force. At this time, he could not care so much and hurriedly stomped his feet, and his body shot back like a heavy artillery shell. Boom! The sword light fiercely chopped a mountain, directly razing it to the ground. And at this time, a palm with golden light directly stretched out and actually directly grabbed his curved blade. Boom! The scimitar had a spirit of its own. In an instant, it reacted on its own. The shadow of the god of berserkers appeared on its blade. It was somewhat similar to the thousand-eyed giant Feng Sun had summoned earlier, but this one was even more violent. It's just a tool spirit. How dare you go against me? Then another big hand directly fell and instantly grabbed the phantom of barbarian god. It continued to struggle, but still could not resist Yi Shiwen's big hand, and was directly grabbed on the spot and directly exploded into the sky of Lingqi, which was directly absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt that his spirit had actually risen a little. Stop! Feng Wui was anxious. Without the help of the tool spirit, it was undoubtedly much more difficult for him to control the heaven-level magic tool. After all, he was not a true celestial realm expert. Although there were tricks were just tricks. Like a ferocious tiger coming down the mountain, he rushed over to kill, but still could not stop Yi Shiwen's determination to subdue this curved blade. The big hand directly penetrated the blade aura and grabbed the hilt. The fierce blade aura directly cut Yi Shiwen's divinity, and then directly cut Yi Shiwen's palm into a bloody mess. But still, it could not stop Yi Shiwen from directly crushing it. And at this time, a finger suddenly pointed in front of Feng Wui, directly blocking his path, making it impossible for him to move forward. He suddenly became anxious, but there was no other way. He could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen forcibly subdued his curved blade bit by bit, although this kind of rough subduing method could not really bring out the true power of the curved blade. But he could only rely on the curved blade to contend against Yi Shiwen. And now, even the curved blade had fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. His situation could be imagined. Yi Shiwen, hurry up, this place is not far from the nest of those aborigines. If we move a little slower, we may be caught by those old guys. Yi Lanshan shouted not far away. I understand. Chapter 1351. Whoosh! The scimitar in Yi Shiwen's hand suddenly slashed out endless saber light, breaking through the sky. Yi Shiwen was also very familiar with saber techniques, but this time, the saber light slashed out by this heaven-level divine tool was even more terrifying than Yi Shiwen's original saber light. In an instant, the whole world was filled with golden saber light, covering the entire sky. Feng Wui saw Yi Shiwen's ferocious attack, and the world changed color. This saber itself was his divine tool, so he was very clear about the power of this scimitar. At this time, the experts of the Four-Eyed Clan who were originally blocked by Yi Lanshan and the others rushed towards Yi Shiwen, as if they had gone crazy, and unexpectedly broke through their defense line. This showed Feng Wui's status in their clan, otherwise they would not have risked their lives to save Feng Wui. A burst of golden light overflowed from Yi Shiwen's body. Suddenly, a huge hand appeared inside his body. It was a huge and awe-inspiring devil's claw. An expert of the four-eyed race who had broken through the defensive line exploded on the spot. He turned into a mass of blood fog and issued a heart-wrenching and lung-splitting scream. That mass of blood fog was also absorbed by the heavenly source mirror on the spot. Even their wealth was absorbed by the mirror. However, these experts of the four-eyed race were poor ghosts. Only a few of them had money. In fact, they didn't have much. It was EMO. Although he had not recovered to his peak and could not deal with Celestial Realm experts, it was not a problem to deal with these ordinary half-step Celestial Realm experts. Yi Shiwen's blade didn't stop there. Instead, it slashed down horizontally. Just like what Yi Shiwen had felt a moment ago, Feng Wui felt as if the entire space around him had been locked by this blade light, and he was completely unable to break free. How can he be so strong? No, I can't die here. I have to block. As long as I can hold on for a little longer, and when the elders of the clan hear the news, it will be time for them to die. Feng Wui's eyes were wide open, and he almost shed tears of blood. Aren't you very strong? Aren't you fearless? Let's see what you can say when you die under your own divine tool. Yi Shiwen sneered. Bang! The blade light finally fell on Feng Wui's body, blooming with endless terrifying rays of light. Although his body was not bad, but there was a huge gap between him and Yi Shiwen. He was sent flying on the spot. Countless defenses were instantly shattered, and the inner armor on his body was also shattered in an instant. Pooh! He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was like a kite with a broken string, smashing through many mountains before crashing into a mountain. But before he could react, Yi Shiwen's second blade had already chopped out. His arm was still dripping with blood. This long blade was simply a double-edged sword. It hurt both the enemy and himself, but he was able to withstand it. These blade chi had cut his flesh, but for him, it was just a superficial wound. It was nothing at all. Puchi. This blade could no longer replace Feng Wui's body. It directly cut into his body, and his body instantly exploded. An extremely terrifying expert was finally killed by Yi Shiwen's two blade strikes. From the moment his divine tool was seized by Yi Shiwen, his fate was sealed. If Yi Shiwen hadn't seized his divine tool, he might have been able to compete with Yi Shiwen. But obviously, now was not the time. Feng Wui's wealth had also fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. But just like Feng Shi, he didn't have much wealth. Although there was a lot of wealth on this planet, they had to compete with other tribes and countries. Secondly, they had to compete with humans. In fact, each of them could not obtain much. Therefore, there were not many Celestial Realm experts among them. In fact, they didn't even need the Yi clan's special control. They didn't have enough resources to share. Without Feng Wui, the experts of the Four-Eyed Clan were simply not enough. In a short while, they were completely slaughtered by the furious Yi Lanshan and the others. There was still residual heat from the explosion at the scene. Blood and corpses were everywhere. Thank you so much this time. If it wasn't for you, let alone saving people, I'm afraid it would have been impossible for us to escape unscathed. Yi Lanshan stepped forward and cupped her hands. She still had a lingering fear in her heart. This time, they were completely tricked. Fortunately, they had invited Yi Shiwen. If it was an ordinary person, even the top 10 masters of other secret realms, it would be difficult for them to escape unscathed. At the same time, she looked at Yi Shiwen with a somewhat complicated expression. There was no doubt that Yi Shiwen's strength had completely shocked her. Originally, she had some thoughts of competing for the #1 secret realm. But now, such thoughts were completely gone. There was no need to compete at all. Yi Shiwen's performance just now was enough to let her see the gap between her and him. The aura of a king was beginning to take shape. These are all just taking someone's money to eliminate disasters. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's hurry up and go. I can already feel tyrannical people rushing over here. Yi Shiwen said. To him, these things were nothing. He was only here for the dustless sweet grass. Taking someone's money to eliminate disasters was his current state. And let's go. Let's go. No one was alone. One by one, they flew toward the periphery of the atmosphere. They were also afraid of being followed. At this time, the safest way was to escape the atmosphere. Otherwise, if they were targeted by a Heaven Realm expert, no matter how far they ran, they could still be chased. At this time, only the formation above the atmosphere could protect them. Sure enough, not long after they left, a tyrannical figure instantly appeared at the scene. Those four eyes announced his identity as a member of the four-eyed race. When he saw the corpses all over the ground, he could not help but feel sorrow in his heart. Roar! A loud roar soared into the sky. After exiting the atmosphere, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. This time, it was really too thrilling. If they had left just a little later, they would have definitely been caught up by that heaven-tier expert. If that happened, they would have definitely died. In that case, I'll take my leave first. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and bid farewell to Zhong Ruigan. At this time, the way everyone looked at him was completely different from before. This was a low-key and powerful man. After saying goodbye to Yi Lanshan and the others, Yi Shiwen did not hesitate for a moment and immediately returned to the #1 secret realm. At this time, Elder Yi was still refining pills, constantly adding medicinal ingredients into the alchemy furnace. One of the medicinal ingredients was the dustless sweet dew grass. Yi Lanshan was very trustworthy. Not long after they left, she had already sent the dustless sweet dew grass. Elder Yi did not ask much, because Yi Shiwen had already sent a message. Yi Shiwen immediately returned to that kind of peaceful life, accumulating in his own hands bit by bit. This time, he once again digested a part of his strength, but it was not over yet. He still worked harder to accumulate. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed in his hands like quicksand. Time passed so quickly that people could not even notice it, especially when Yi Shiwen was completely immersed in cultivation. The masters of Golden Jade Pavilion were still clamoring for Yi Shiwen to hand over the #1 secret realm, but Yi Shiwen simply ignored them. However, this did not prevent them from continuing to jump up and down, inciting the other top 10 secret realm masters to find trouble with Yi Shiwen. However, which of these top 10 secret realm masters was not a smart person? How could they be incited by these people? So they all held back. In the end, the loudest clamoring was still Golden Jade Pavilion and some of its friendly forces. Soon, the master of Wanli Realm, Yi Lanshan, directly announced that she would not participate in this time's competition for the #1 secret realm. This announcement directly confused many people. For some reason, although Yi Lanshan could not be considered as the most active competitor for the #1 secret realm, she was definitely one of the more active ones. However, now that she suddenly announced that she would not participate in the competition for the #1 secret realm, it immediately made many amateur observers feel like their glasses were about to fall off. This could be considered as completely making them speechless. Now, among the top 10 secret realm masters, Yin Taiping was defeated by Yi Shiwen, and Yi Lanshan announced that she would not participate in the competition for the #1 secret realm. This was equivalent to losing a lot of things to watch. While everyone was still discussing this matter, another shocking news came out. The #6 secret realm had a change of master. This was a shocking battle, and the master of the #6 secret realm was defeated and driven out of the #6 secret realm like a stray dog. And this person soon emerged. It turned out to be the son of God who had caused a stir during this period, Yi Shukong. Some people saw that Yi Shukong had completely defeated the original owner of the human secret realm #6 in a completely crushing manner, almost without much effort. It was a complete defeat. This gave a huge shock to many people. First, there was Yi Shiwen, and now there was Yi Shukong. Could it be that this generation of the younger generation was finally rising? They originally thought that it would take at least 100 years for them to rise. They did not expect that they had already caught up to their levels so quickly. Yi Shiwen's ascension to the #1 secret realm was more or less due to the power of the law enforcement hall. Even if he defeated Yin Taiping previously, in the eyes of many, he was at most on par with Yin Taiping. It was just that Yin Taiping chose the wrong method and finally lost to him. Even if he was strong, there was a limit. Therefore, although Yi Shiwen was regarded as one of the top 10 because of the battle with Yin Taiping, he did not completely dominate. Chapter 1352. In other words, Yi Shiwen was only regarded as having the qualifications to become the master of the top 10 secret realms. But this did not mean that Yi Shiwen could suppress the others and become the king of the human secret realm. In other words, in their eyes, they still did not think that Yi Shiwen was qualified to truly occupy the human secret realm #1. The meaning of this alone was enough to explain everything. However, Yi Shukong was different. He did not appear out of thin air. Instead, he directly defeated the original owner of the 6th secret realm and occupied it. This peerless genius of the Yi family, who was accepted by the family master, finally showed his ferocious side. Many people were exclaiming that he was going to show his power. Yi Shukong had entered secret territory #1 very early, at least much earlier than Yi Shiwen. When Yi Shiwen was still struggling in other places, he had already been practicing in the secret territory #1. But at that time, although he had the title of the Son of God, he was not too outstanding in the human secret realm where geniuses were as numerous as dogs. In addition, he was low-key and did closed-door training all year round. So many people did not pay much attention to him. No one expected that the first time he showed his fangs was to defeat the master of the 6th secret realm. Moreover, it wasn't a bitter defeat, but an easy one. Even the owner of the human secret realm #6 didn't last more than 10 moves before he was completely defeated. The difference in strength between the two was clear at a glance. For a time, Yi Shukong immediately became the most popular contender for the master of the human secret realm #1. However, this was not the biggest change. After Yi Shukong defeated the master of the 6th secret realm, another shocking news came out. The master of the 7th secret realm was also defeated, and the person who defeated him was another popular young master, Yi Qianqian. Compared to Yi Shukong, who was always low-key, and Yi Shiwen, who had just returned to the Yi family not many years ago, Yi Qianqian could be said to be a celebrity. Although it was her first time entering the human secret realm, her reputation was not small. Even in the human secret realm, she was well known. She, who was rumored to be the reincarnation of an ancient goddess, was also expected to enter the human secret realm to cultivate sooner or later. However, no one expected that it would happen so soon. Moreover, Yi Qianqian's success far exceeded everyone's expectations. The master of human secret realm number 7 was originally a genius of the Yi family. However, before Yi Qianqian, he could not even withstand a single blow. He was defeated by Yi Qianqian within a few moves. He was no match for Yi Qianqian. This series of upheavals caused the entire human secret realm to be in an uproar. Although the human secret realm had never been peaceful, it was still stable on the whole. Generally speaking, the change of the top 10 secret realms might not happen for decades or even hundreds of years. That was because once there was a change, it would usually mean that one of the 10 had stepped into the heaven tier. Only then would their positions move by one position. This was the normal change of the top 10 mystery zones. The situation of being counterattacked by the later masters of the secret zones was very rare in the past. After all, these people were already the most tyrannical group of people under the heaven tier. It was very difficult for them to be counterattacked. But now, it had happened 3 times in one go. First, Yin Taiping was defeated by Yi Shiwen, followed by Yi Shukong and Yi Qianqian's counterattack. It could be said that the entire structure of the human secret realm had suddenly undergone a huge change after these 3 people joined. Such a change caught many old people off guard. It was completely different from what they had imagined. Because of this, they could only say that the younger generation was extremely fierce. Especially the young people of this generation, they were even more fierce. Yi Shukong was the legendary son of God. There was no barrier at all when it came to cultivation. As long as there was enough accumulation, all the problems in cultivation would be easily solved. On the other hand, Yi Qianqian was also the legendary reincarnation of an ancient goddess. She was talented and constantly broke through. Her progress was also frighteningly fast. Although no one had heard of Yi Shiwen's background, just based on the fact that he had once defeated Yi Shukong, there was no need to explain all this. Thinking of this, many old people could not help but have the urge to hit the wall. There were old people blocking the way in front, and there were new people behind them. How could they live? For a moment, Yi Shiwen, Yi Shukong, and Yi Qianqian became the focus of everyone's attention in an instant, especially many affiliated families. They had to admit that the Yi family really had an endless supply of talents. Yi Shiwen's appearance was like a fuse, attracting many people out. First, there was Yi Shukong, followed by Yi Qianqian. After that, the geniuses of this generation would also enter a blowout period. Yi Shui and the others would also grow in a very short period of time. Although they were not as amazing as Yi Shukong and Yi Shukong, it was enough to cause a huge impact on the current situation. Just as these people caused a huge impact, the owner of human number 2 secret realm, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. The human character secret realm number 2 was the most special existence in the entire human character secret realm. The owner of the human character secret realm number 1 was considered to be the king of the human character secret realm. Then, the owner of the human character secret realm number 2 was the second strongest after him. He had always been the top powerhouse in the human secret realm. After the original owner of human number 1 secret realm was promoted to a celestial realm master, he became the top master in the human secret realm and was also recognized as the strongest master in the human secret realm. Originally, everyone thought that he would naturally become the new owner of human number 1 secret realm. Who knew that Yi Shiwen's appearance in human number 1 secret realm would cause an uproar? And because Yi Shiwen defeated Yin Taiping, he completely became the focus of everyone's attention. After that, Yi Shukong and Yi Qianqian appeared one after another, but the owner of human number 2 secret realm had never said anything. At this time, he finally spoke, and once he spoke, it was a gathering order, summoning the owners of the top 10 secret realms of human secret realm to go to the 200th secret realm for a gathering. At present, the 200th secret realm was also empty, and no one lived there. At this time, it also became a venue for the gathering. As soon as this gathering order was issued, the entire human secret realm was suddenly in an uproar. The owner of human number 2 secret realm was very old in the human secret realm. He was basically close to 1,000 years old and would soon be kicked out. This was also a very real problem. People in the human secret realm could not be more than 1,000 years old. Once they were more than 1,000 years old and had not stepped into the celestial realm, it meant that their potential was limited. It was not impossible for such people to continue to occupy the secret realm, but it would cost more resources. The previous price was given to those geniuses at a preferential price. This directly led to many people choosing to leave the secret realm after reaching the limit of their age. It was very difficult for them to step into the celestial realm in this lifetime. But the reality was so cruel. Even the owners of the top 10 secret realms in the human secret realm could not all step into the celestial realm, let alone those who came later. And the owner of the number 2 secret realm was such a master who was close to 1,000 years old, which meant that he might leave the human secret realm soon. But even so, no one dared to look down on him, because he had cultivated for hundreds of years more than the other experts in the human secret realm. These geniuses would have great changes in just a few years, let alone hundreds of years. Although the speed of improvement would be slower the further they went, the accumulation was enough to scare a lot of people to death. Therefore, although Yi Shiwen occupied the human number 1 secret realm, Yi Shukong even made a name for himself as the son of God, and the other secret realm owners were also tyrannical. But the owner of the number 2 secret realm was the only one who could summon everyone at once. The others did not have this kind of charisma, nor did they have this kind of ability. Yi Shiwen also received this invitation, which was a little strange. One should know that the owner of the number 2 secret realm had always been relatively low-key. It was said that when the previous owner of the number 1 secret realm was still alive, he was relatively low-key. It was not just because he was suppressed by the powerful owner of the number 1 secret realm. There was another very important reason, which was that he was getting older. If he did not make a breakthrough, his future days might be difficult. So most of the time, he was also in closed-door cultivation. Even when Yi Shiwen appeared out of nowhere and many people thought that he should take over the position of the owner of the number 1 secret realm, he did not say a word. At this time, he actually sent an invitation to everyone to discuss important matters. What would it be for? Could it be for the matter of the number 1 secret realm? It didn't look like it. Speaking of which, there was no essential difference between the top 10 secret realms of the human word secret realm. There wasn't much difference. The real reason why the human word secret realm number 1 caught everyone's attention was the position it represented. It represented the supreme position in the human word secret realm. It was the king of the human secret realm. Could it be that he wanted to have a taste of being a king before he left? This possibility could not be ruled out. There were too many crazy people like this in history. There was no way to understand the world of crazy people with normal thinking. But thinking about it, it seemed unlikely. Otherwise, he would have taken action long ago. Yi Shiwen felt as if his head was about to explode as he thought of these things. Yi Mo was in a deep sleep at this time, and old Yi only cared about teaching him cultivation. He simply didn't care about anything else. So, he had to deal with these things personally. In fact, he didn't even care about what Yi Shiwen did. As long as Yi Shiwen came back to receive guidance, it would be fine. At other times, he would sit like a stone statue, not asking anything at all. Yi Shiwen knew that Elder Yi wanted to hone his ability, not only his strength, but also his ability to conduct himself. But at this time, he could not find anyone to advise him, which was quite a headache. Whatever, no matter what conspiracy he has in the face of real strength, it is nothing. Yi Shiwen could only let go of these in the end. Chapter 1353. Since he dared to say such a thing, he naturally had his reasons. Even though he didn't deliberately cultivate during these 3 months and mostly used it to build his foundation, expand his horizons, comprehend, and raise his cultivation level, he didn't dare to say such a thing. However, after he entered the 9th level of the Transcendence realm, the realm barrier was no longer there. His cultivation journey could be said to be smooth and very smooth. Even if he did not deliberately cultivate, a full 3 months of continuous absorption of medicinal herbs and constant listening to Elder Ye's guidance was enough to make his strength rise to another level. Although he still had not reached the peak of the 9th level of the Transcendence realm, compared to before, he was a lot more powerful. This was also because of his unlimited potential. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already climbed to the peak of the 9th level of the Transcendence realm. This kind of thing for Yi Shiwen was naturally both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that it was difficult to meet an opponent in the same realm, and he could even kill opponents of a higher realm. The disadvantage was that it was much more difficult to improve than ordinary people. Although his current cultivation speed was extremely fast, it was because he had consumed a lot of resources. If it was someone else, these resources were enough to produce a Celestial Realm Master, but he had not yet reached the peak of the 9th level of the Transcendence realm. He naturally had his own confidence. In this world, to put it bluntly, it was still based on strength. Unless the owner of this second secret realm had already entered the Celestial Realm. Otherwise, he was not afraid. Even if they wanted to challenge him and snatch the control of the first secret realm, he was not afraid at all. Since someone else had already sent an invitation, how could he, the owner of the first secret realm, show fear? He immediately bade farewell to Old Yi. Old Yi didn't care about this. His main focus was on refining immortality pills for Yi Shiwen. Now was the most critical moment of refining immortality pills. Even his explanation for Yi Shiwen had been paused a lot. He wanted Yi Shiwen to see for himself first. If he had any questions, he could ask them all at once. After saying goodbye to Elder Yi, Yi Shiwen went straight to the 200th secret realm. Secret realm number 200 had been idle for a very long time, so it had been quiet for a very long time. Now, because of an invitation from the owner of secret realm number 2, it had become the focus of countless experts. Regardless of whether they had received the invitation or not, they were all gathered in the number 200 secret realm. Even if they didn't receive the invitation, for these experts, just being able to watch these influential figures in the human secret realm was already worth the ticket price. One had to know that these people were often in seclusion. It was not easy to see even one of them, let alone so many of them. The entire secret realm number 200 was a barren plain with countless spiritual energy condensing here. In the middle, there were 10 huge thrones that towered into the clouds. Everyone knew that these were the 10 people who represented the ruling positions in the human secret realm. They were the top 10 people in the human secret realm. The others had also arrived and stood around these 10 positions. These 10 thrones seemed to have been picked up from the ground by someone using magic power. Yi Shiwen had just arrived and saw Yi Zhilan, who he hadn't seen for a while. At this time, she was also mixed in the crowd. It seemed that she also came with Yi Qianqian. Braggart! Seeing Yi Shiwen, Yi Zhilan was quite excited and quickly ran over to say, "Why are you here, little girl?" Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Zhilan and couldn't help but smile. After not seeing her for a while, this little girl had also entered the half-step celestial realm early stage. Her cultivation progress was very fast. Although she still couldn't catch up with Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian, it was really shocking enough. According to this trend, it wouldn't be long before she would reach the half-step celestial realm late stage and occupy a place among the many experts in the human secret realm. If you can come, why can't I? Braggart. Why didn't you come to find us after that? Yi Zhilan directly questioned him as soon as she came up. Yi Shiwen smiled a little helplessly and said, "I've been busy recently. I don't care in any case, I can't." Yi Zhilan pouted and said, "Tell me, how are you going to compensate us? Then, how about I compensate you with a stick of candied hawthorns?" Yi Shiwen said with a smile. "Ah, bastard, don't treat me like a child." Yi Zhilan suddenly bared her fangs and brandished her claws. She simply hung on Yi Shiwen's waist like a koala bear. She was completely angry. Yi Shiwen actually dared to treat her like a child. This had completely made her angry. Yes, angry. Huh? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Seeing Yi Zhilan, his mood couldn't help but become better. You are Yi Shiwen? At this time, a rough voice came from the side. It was a tall and strong man who looked to be in his late 20s. At this time, he was looking at Yi Shiwen with a frivolous face. There seemed to be a bit of disdain in his eyes. Big blockhead, who are you? At this time, Yi Shiwen had not yet opened his mouth, but Yi Zhilan had already opened her mouth and said without any trace of politeness. She could quarrel with Yi Shiwen, but others could not. Not to mention, this blockhead had an unfriendly look on his face. She believed that as Yi Shiwen's friend, she naturally had to protect her friend. When this tall and strong man heard Yi Zhilan calling him blockhead, his complexion suddenly turned somewhat ugly. The corner of his mouth slightly twitched. He had never been called a blockhead before. In the eyes of many people, this was a symbol of tyranny, but in the mouth of this Yi Zhilan, it had become a blockhead. Especially when the surrounding people heard this naive little girl's words, they couldn't help but burst into laughter one after another. This tall and strong man's complexion immediately turned livid. He did not expect that because of Yi Zhilan's words, he would become the focus of everyone's ridicule. He suddenly became furious. You're courting death. This tall and strong man roared and directly slapped towards Yi Zhilan. His futon-like big hand directly swung over. This tall and strong man actually had the strength of the peak of the late stage of half-step celestial realm. Naturally, he was much stronger than Yi Zhilan. If Yi Zhilan was hit on the spot by this tall and strong man, perhaps her small body would be smashed to pieces. Bang! But a loud sound was heard. This futon-like big hand's wrist was firmly grasped by a palm and could not move forward. And at this time, this big hand was only an inch away from Yi Zhilan. Yi Zhilan's complexion slightly changed. Just now, this tall and strong man's action was too fast. She did not even have the time to be afraid. At this time, her complexion slightly changed, but then she suddenly calmed down because this futon-like big hand had been firmly grasped by someone. She did not need to look to know that in this vicinity, only Yi Shiwen could make a move. This brother, I'm afraid it's not good to make a move on a little girl like this. Yi Shiwen's leisurely voice came out. The person who had made a move at that critical moment was indeed him. At that critical moment, his eyes were sharp and his hands were quick, and he directly made a move to block this tall and strong man. This tall and strong man exerted all his strength, but found that he actually had no way to pull his wrist out. He could not help but turn pale with fright. He was very clear about his own strength. It could be said that he had the strength to move mountains and rivers, but now it was actually easily grasped by this somewhat thin young man in front of him. No matter how much strength he used, it seemed that his life was being grasped by Yi Shiwen, and there was no way for him to escape from Yi Shiwen's big hand. Roar! This tall and strong man roared again and again. A huge sword instantly evolved in his hand. He was already tall enough, but this huge sword was a few heads taller than him. It was incomparably thick, and the body of the sword was engraved with some savage runes, giving off an ancient and savage flavor. Shwa! This huge sword immediately chopped down like lightning. Although its size was incomparably huge, when it was wielded by this tall and strong man, there was no hindrance. It was as fast as lightning. Dang! Yi Shiwen raised his hand to block, and this sword directly chopped down on his arm. Suddenly, there was a sound of gold and iron colliding, and sparks flew everywhere, as if two huge pieces of metal collided. Isn't this Wu Pingju from the Wu family? Why is he here too? Wasn't he easily defeated by Yi Shukom? Now even he has appeared. This time's gathering is going to be interesting. The fight between the two quickly attracted the attention of many people. Originally, many people were staring at the 10 thrones, but soon their gazes shifted to Yi Shiwen and this Wu Pingju. Someone recognized this Wu Pingju and immediately recognized his identity. He was actually the original owner of Secret Realm No. 6 who was defeated by Yi Shuko. But soon, someone recognized Yi Shiwen's identity. This is the owner of the human Secret Realm No. 1, Yi Shiwen. What, it's him? At this time, after knowing Yi Shiwen's identity, It soon caused a commotion in the crowd. After all, in this gathering, the most dazzling people were naturally the owners of the 10 thrones, and Yi Shiwen was also one of the owners. How come Wu Pingjiu and Yi Shiwen are together? It's all because of those 10 thrones. Only the strongest 10 people can sit on those 10 thrones. But now that Wu Pingjiu has been knocked down from the altar, his position has been occupied by Yi Shukong. At this time, I'm afraid that he is looking for someone else's bad luck to retake one of the positions. It's a pity that this Yi Shiwen doesn't seem to be easy to deal with. This is going to be interesting. There were only 10 thrones, and these 10 people truly represented the top combat power in the human secret realm. There were only 10 positions, and no more people could be accommodated. Wu Pingjiu was undoubtedly one of them, but after being defeated by Yi Shukong, he lost this qualification. Now, he wanted to regain this qualification, so he locked his target on Yi Shiwen. Chapter 1354. Hearing the discussions of these people, how could Yi Shiwen not know that Wu Pingjiu's intentions were simply because he was knocked off his pedestal? Now he was unwilling to accept it and wanted to climb back up. However, he could not afford to offend Yi Shukong, so he could only come to look for Yi Shiwen. Was Yi Shiwen a pushover? So you want my position? Yi Shiwen sneered. He seemed to be laughing at Yi Shukong for overestimating himself, and also seemed to be laughing at Yi Shukong for easily defeating him. In any case, Yi Shiwen's smile became an abominable smile in Wu Pingjiu's eyes. Suddenly, he felt a sense of shame turning into anger. He raised the giant sword in his hand again, and spiritual energy radiated from all over his body. The colorful light made him look like a tall and strong god, with a kind of momentum that could devour heaven and earth. Although he suffered a great loss in the hands of Yi Shukong, it had to be said that his strength was still very strong. It was not without reason that he could occupy the 6th place in the human secret realm for a long time. His figure seemed to be integrated with the whole world like a god. The giant sword in his hand was extremely sharp, exuding endless sword aura, tearing the void, and in an instant, it rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Everyone around was shocked. This Wu Pingjiu used all his strength as soon as he came up, as if he had no intention of holding back at all. Because he knew that Yi Shiwen had defeated Yin Taiping before and was not an ordinary person, he did not want to drag it out for a long time. So he used all his strength as soon as he came up. In the next moment, everyone finally understood why Wu Pingjiu would actually attack so fiercely and with such an expression. There was no other reason, and that was because Yi Shiwen was too strong. Yi Shiwen directly took a step forward and stood in front of Yi Zhilan. Golden divinity gushed out from every part of his body, stabilizing everything and protecting Yi Zhilan. At the same time, his palm shot out, as if it was the end of the world, smashing everything. The sword aura slashed on it, but it could not cut through the divinity protecting Yi Shiwen's body, and was directly shattered by him. His movements were incredibly fast, and he sent out countless golden palms in the air, covering the entire sky. It was extremely terrifying. Boom! 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 The battle between the two shattered the universe, finally attracting the attention of everyone present. Originally, many people had only been looking at the thrones and had not noticed the confrontation between the two. However, as the two of them attacked with all their might, the commotion was so great that they immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. The two of them fought all the way to the horizon. Strange phenomena appeared one after another, and the horizon was constantly collapsing. It was as if two gods were fighting. If this was an ordinary continent, it would have been unable to withstand the aftermath of the battle between the two of them and collapsed. Fortunately, it had gone through a special refining process. The two of them fought with matchless divine might, like two bolts of lightning flashing in the void. Every time they collided, a peerless divine light would burst out, sweeping down. Many of the weaker martial artists present had to activate their protective aura chi to avoid being swept away by these divine lights and being blown away on the spot. Wu Pingjiu's strength was indeed very tyrannical. Not only was his strength incomparably great, but most importantly, his speed was also extremely fast. Not only was he stronger than Yin Taiping, but he was also comparable to Feng Wui, whom Yi Shiwen had fought before. A few months ago, Yi Shiwen was already strong enough to defeat Feng Wui, let alone now. Do I look like a pushover? Anyone can come up and give me a kick? Yi Shiwen's cold shout could be heard throughout the void of the universe. Everyone's expression changed slightly, because many of them also thought so. Among the top 10, Yi Shiwen was undoubtedly the weakest in everyone's opinion. So, what if you are? If you know what's good for you, hand over the human number 1 secret realm. Otherwise, you'll suffer. At this time, Wu Pingjiu, who knew that his purpose had been seen through, did not hesitate anymore. Since he had already been seen through, there was no need to be polite. Am I really that easy to bully? Yi Shiwen said coldly. Yes, I'm bullying you, so what? Wu Pingjiu shouted. He already felt ashamed that he could not take down Yi Shiwen after so long. You're so arrogant. You're just a small 9th heaven of the law manifestation realm. Do you want to ascend the throne and stand side by side with the strong? So what if I am? I'm going to sit on it today. Yi Shiwen was furious. This was not only anger at Wu Pingjiu, but also because he had been targeted many times during this period. It had been like this since he first obtained the 9 Revolutions Taishian Golden Pill. He was completely targeted, and the reason was just as Wu Pingjiu said. Everyone thought that he was easy to bully, so it did not matter if they bullied him or not. Every time, a little anger would accumulate, and this time, it would all burst out. I'm not qualified, but do you think you are? You're just a loser. Yi Shiwen sneered. Wu Pingjiu suddenly became furious. Everyone knew that he was driven out by Yi Shukong, and Yi Shiwen had defeated Yi Shukong before. Therefore, there was no logical error in saying that he was defeated by Yi Shiwen at this time. Although everyone knew that it could not be compared like this, it was enough to see some clues. Many people thought that Yi Shiwen could defeat Yi Shukong purely because he was lucky. Even Wu Pingjiu thought so. So he looked for Yi Shiwen, who seemed to be the weakest. In the end, he did not expect that Yi Shiwen was far more tyrannical than he imagined. Now, I'll let you see whether I'm a pushover or not, Yi Shiwen shouted. His hand grabbed from the void, grabbed his scimitar, and suddenly slashed down towards Wu Pingjiu. Wherever the scimitar passed, the space was all distorted, the void collapsed, and a dazzling light burst out. A few months was enough for Yi Shiwen's control of the scimitar to reach the peak. Wu Pingjiu quickly raised his sword to block. Dang! There was a loud sound like gold and iron colliding, and the horrifying aftershock swept wildly in all directions. Boom! A large part of the void under Wu Pingjiu's feet collapsed, completely collapsed by this huge force. Wu Pingjiu even had time to scream, and his entire arm was already numb. Dang! Yi Shiwen's second slash arrived in the blink of an eye, and smashed fiercely on the body of the raised sword. The raised sword was instantly blown away, turned into a stream of light in the sky, and directly inserted into the ground, blasting a huge pit. Wu Pingjiu's entire arm was already completely numb, and his palm had completely cracked open, looking like a bloody mess. His body directly knelt down, not because he was willing, but because he was forced to kneel on the ground by a huge force. He felt extremely humiliated, but there was nothing he could do. When facing Yi Shiwen's terrifying strength, he realized that the strength that he was proud of in the past had become a huge joke. At this moment, he felt like he was facing Yi Shukong, and he had no power to fight back. He was defeated twice in a row. It was fine if he lost to the Son of God, Yi Shukong. After all, the reputation of the Son of God was so resounding, and everyone knew how to choose. But now, how could he say that he lost to Yi Shiwen? Thinking of this, he only felt a tightness in his chest. Puff! Finally, a mouthful of blood couldn't be held back anymore, and it spat out on the spot, splattering on the ground, and directly fainted. At this time, everyone's heart was in awe, and they kept quiet out of fear. They were all the best of the younger generation in the Yi family and the affiliated families. Any one of them in the outside world would be extremely tyrannical. But at this moment, after seeing Yi Shiwen's strength, they felt how fragile they were. They were much more fragile than they had imagined. Or rather, Yi Shiwen was too strong. Even a master like Wu Pingju couldn't withstand 2 slashes from him, and was directly defeated. This had nothing to do with him being the master of the #1 secret realm. If he wanted to truly ascend to the throne and gain everyone's recognition, then he must have strength far beyond everyone else. Otherwise, it would be useless at all. Is there anyone else who is not convinced? Yi Shiwen's cold gaze swept over, and everyone immediately avoided Yi Shiwen's gaze, not daring to look directly at him. At this time, Yi Shiwen was too powerful, too terrifying. Except for those on the throne, how many people dared to compete with Yi Shiwen now? Braggart King, good fight, this blockhead is not a good person. At this time, the scene was silent, and only the naive little girl Yi Zhilan would still be cheering for Yi Shiwen at the side. Yi Shiwen's gaze turned to the high platform, but on the high platform, among the 10 thrones, 6 had already arrived. Except for the master of the #2 secret realm, who had not yet arrived, the 2 leaders of the Golden Jade Pavilion, who were said to be in closed-door training, Prince Jin and Prince Yu also did not appear. In addition, all of them had also appeared, including Yi Lanshan, Yi Shukong, Yi Qianqian, and 2 tyrannical masters that Yi Shiwen did not know. 2 men, a blue-robed youth and a red-robed middle-aged man, were respectively ranked 8th and 9th on the throne. However, the person in the 10th position wasn't Yin Taiping, whom Yi Shiwen was familiar with. Instead, it was another man. He was a slightly thin and weak man. His complexion was somewhat gloomy. He was sitting on the throne with an ice-cold expression on his face. Near the 10th throne, there were some bloodstains, as well as a somewhat messy spiritual aura. Obviously, there had just been a battle, and Yin Taiping had probably been defeated and left. So who was this person? How could he actually defeat Yin Taiping and rank 10th? Yi Shiwen didn't know, but Yi Zhilan knew. Through her mouth, Yi Shiwen quickly learned that this slightly thin and weak man was the original owner of the human #7 secret territory, Yin Xiuqi. After being driven away by Yi Qianqian, he now returned to the top 10 by defeating Yin Taiping. Originally, Wu Pingju also wanted to do the same, but unfortunately, he found the wrong opponent and found Yi Shiwen. Chapter 1355. Obviously, Yi Shiwen was much stronger than he thought. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen should be the weakest among them, but now it seemed that finding Yi Shiwen was definitely a huge mistake. Yi Shiwen was not only not weak, but also very strong. With Yi Zhilan's introduction, Yi Shiwen quickly learned the identities of the 2 young men in blue and the middle-aged man in red. The young man in blue was also an expert of the Yi clan, named Yi Xian, while the middle-aged man in red had a somewhat special identity. It was said that he was the descendant of a close minister of the previous generation's clan master. Although he was not an affiliated clan of the old Yi clan, he was still considered a famous clan. His surname was Hua, and his name was Hui. In addition to Prince Jin, Prince Yu, and the master of the 2nd secret realm, and Tianhua, they were now the top 10 most tyrannical experts in the secret realm, and Yin Taiping had obviously been eliminated. Yi Shiwen flew directly to the first throne and sat down. If it was said that many people might have questioned Yi Shiwen's qualifications just now, but now, who would dare to question Yi Shiwen's qualifications? Although they didn't know whether Yi Shiwen was the strongest or not. After all, many people hadn't fought against him yet. However, there was no doubt that they weren't qualified to question Yi Shiwen. At this time, Yi Shiwen noticed that a pair of eyes had been firmly locked on him. He turned his head and saw that it was none other than Yi Shukong, whom he had not seen for a while. He had become more powerful, and not just by a little bit. His eyes were full of fighting spirit as he stared at Yi Shiwen. He was still as elegant as before, but even more tyrannical than before. It seemed that the previous defeat at Yi Shiwen's hands had a huge impact on him. It was unforgettable, but he was now stronger. It could even be said that he could dominate the realm of half-step celestial realm. Unlike him, who only showed his brilliance for the first time, he had now revealed his fangs. It was just that he had become stronger, and Yi Shiwen had also become stronger. These 2 powerful opponents had come all the way to where they were now, and in the end, they found that the other party had become even stronger. After not seeing him for a long time, Yishuin also had some fighting spirit in his eyes. He also wanted to know how strong Yishukong was now. He never thought that the Son of God was unbeatable, not to mention that he had already defeated Yishukong once. If he could defeat Yishukong a second time. First of all, Yisukong instantly burst forth with a powerful battle intention and rushed straight towards Yishuin. Yishuin was not to be outdone, so he also boiled his blood and chi to confront Yisukong. At this time, the two of them were already famous figures in the entire human secret realm. It was not like the beginning when not many people knew about them. Hence, everyone had heard about the grudge between the two of them. At this time, seeing the two of them start a fight, everyone was shocked. Would they be able to see another exciting battle? Especially for those with lower strength. A battle of this level was undoubtedly a soul-stirring process. Even if they just watched from the side, they could still learn a lot. Yi Shiwen, do you dare to fight? Yi Sukong looked at Yi Shiwen with a burning fighting intent in his eyes. Why wouldn't I dare? Yi Shiwen immediately stood up from the throne. The two of them are finally going to continue that battle again. The battle between Yi Shiwen and the Son of God. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Yeah, the battle between the two of them will definitely make people's blood boil. Coming here today to see the two of them continue that battle is definitely not in vain. At this time, a shocking aura descended from the sky. Along with this aura, a figure appeared in the sky with a graceful arc, instantly appearing in front of everyone. When the graceful arc on this person's body was shaved off, everyone could clearly see this person's identity. It was in Tianhua. They saw that in Tianhua was middle-aged with thick eyebrows and big eyes. At this time, there was a somewhat dignified look on his face. As soon as this person arrived, he immediately suppressed everyone's aura, including Yi Shukong and Yi Shiwen. The battle intention that had just been ignited by the two of them also disappeared without a trace in an instant. This was a terrifying existence that was infinitely close to the heaven realm. His profound skill was terrifying, and they could feel it from far away. And Tianhua sat on the second throne. He had no intention of competing with Yi Shiwen for the first throne. He glanced at everyone and said, "Excuse me, everyone. This time, I took the liberty to invite everyone here, because I have a request. Don't be so polite. If there's anything we can help with, just say it. As long as we can help, we will do our best. How about it?" The 9 people on the thrones quickly said, "Here's the thing. Everyone should know that I'm not young anymore, but I'm still lingering on the threshold of the heaven realm." And Tianhua said, everyone nodded. Everyone had some understanding of the situation, but none of them laughed. That was because apart from Yi Shukong, the Son of God, who claimed to have no bottlenecks in his cultivation, no one dared to say that they would definitely be able to step into the heaven realm. Even they, who were favored by the heavens, could not do it. Perhaps one day in the future, they would also face such a situation. Therefore, they might feel that it was a pity, but no one laughed at it. This was nothing to laugh at. Today, I invited everyone here because I want everyone to help me break into the heaven realm in one go. And Tianhua said, everyone felt a little strange. How could they help in Tianhua? Strictly speaking, and Tianhua's strength was definitely more tyrannical than theirs. What could they help him with? Is there anything we can help with? At this time, Yi Lanshan opened her mouth to speak. Among these people, she and Tianhua could be considered as familiar food. I've been stuck in this realm for more than a few hundred years. I dare say that there should be no one here who has more accumulation than me, but I still can't break into the heaven realm. When saying this, and Tianhua's expression couldn't help but become a little silent. He was only close to 1,000 years old. In terms of his lifespan of 10,000 years, he was still very young. In the future, the chances of him breaking into the heaven realm were very high. However, the difference between breaking into the heaven realm in this secret realm and breaking into the heaven realm in the endless future was huge. If he could break into the heaven realm before the age of 1,000, then he would still be a genius nurtured by the Yi clan. Even if he broke into the heaven realm, the nurturing would still not end. However, On the other hand, if he couldn't break into the heaven realm before the age of 1,000, then even if he did break into the heaven realm in the future, his potential would basically be exhausted. Without the help of the Yi clan's resources, his future could be said to be at an end. There were too many experts like this in the Yi clan, and they were not outstanding at all. Therefore, he was not willing to give up and wanted to fight at the last moment. No matter what, he was not willing to let it end like this. Perhaps this was also his last chance. Everyone was listening attentively. These things might be able to help them in the future, because this was the personal experience of an expert who was about to break into the heaven realm. Although it was an experience of failure, it was still very valuable. Later on, I tried all sorts of methods, but none of them were able to truly break through to the heaven tier. Aside from my strength constantly increasing, there were no other benefits. Then, I pondered that perhaps my battle experience was not enough. So I wanted to find an opponent who could help me smoothly break through to the heaven tier. In the human secret realm, all of you are already the cream of the crop, so this is the only method I can think of. I hope that all of you can help me. At this moment, Tianhua actually stood up and then bowed deeply to everyone. It could be said that this posture had been lowered to a very low level. For an unruly genius to be able to do this was already very difficult. It could be seen just how difficult it was for him to step into the celestial realm. Everyone was in a bit of a dilemma, each with their own calculations in mind. They all knew that this Tianhua was very strong, and if his own strength was not strong enough, it would probably be useless even if he went up. What he wanted was a powerful opponent who could force out all of his potential, a powerful opponent who could let him break into the heaven realm in one fell swoop. But he himself was already strong enough, and who could be stronger than him? Thinking of this, many people could not help but start to become silent. But among the experts below the heaven realm in the Yi clan, apart from those old seniors who were thousands of years old, they were already counted as the top experts of the younger generation. Even if there were people hiding their strength, it was not much. After all, no matter how strong they were, they could not be stronger than the heaven realm. If even they were not enough to fight, then Tianhua had no other choice but to find those old seniors who had cultivated for thousands of years to fight. But that was also the only way out. If in a short time, Tianhua could not break into the heaven realm, then he would also become one of those old seniors. A heaven realm expert who was 1,000 years old was still considered young, but a 1,000 years old who was half a step into the heaven realm was not young anymore. Although it was only one step, the difference was like heaven and earth. One step into heaven and one step into hell. At this time, a voice came first. What's so difficult about this? Let me go first. It was none other than the red-robed middle-aged man, Hui. His body erupted with countless energy currents like a volcanic eruption. His entire body was submerged in this energy, as if he was a man of fire. Okay, then I'll have to trouble you. At this time, Tianhua said politely, but the aura on his body did not give way. It was majestic and invincible like the great river and the sea, instantly crushing down. Many of the warriors present could not help but retreat, except for those experts on the thrones. Their strength was obviously not just a level lower than Tianhua's, so they could only continue to retreat under the pressure of these two monstrous auras. Chapter 1356. The two of them flew directly into the void, no longer wanting to fight in the 200th secret realm. However, the aura of both sides still passed through the endless void, making everyone shudder in fear. The countless flames in Huiyi's hands instantly began to burn, spreading a large sea of fire in the void, which then became violent in an instant. Swoosh! 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 Countless flames bombarded Tianhua. At this moment, Hui turned into a fire magician and began to attack Tianhua in a frenzy. In the face of these attacks, Tianhua was not the slightest bit afraid. His hands in the void created a sky full of zhongying, which instantly blocked the flames completely, making it impossible for them to get close to him. At this moment, the flames in Huiyi's hands turned into a flaming longsword. He took a step forward and immediately slashed at Tianhua. Without holding back, The flames burned wildly. Fast, fast, fast. Hui Yi's speed was incomparably fast. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a huge flame. In an instant, he had already pounced on Tianhua. Taking advantage of the time when Tianhua was dealing with the erratic flames, he instantly rushed forward. Bang! The flaming longsword in his hand instantly broke through the sky full of palm shadows, and the tip of the sword went straight for Tianhua's face. Tianhua's body trembled, and countless spiritual ether instantly formed a shield of vigor. Clang! Hui Yi's thick-faced longsword in his hand slashed through his shield of vigor and could not move an inch further. Then Tianhua made his move. He blasted out a punch, and a terrifying fist force instantly blasted out, forming a huge chi spiral that strangled everything. It was only a basic fist technique, but it was able to exert extremely terrifying power. The expressions of many experts below changed greatly, and Tianhua's strength was simply tyrannical and terrifying, especially those ordinary experts half a step into the celestial realm. He could simply kill one with one punch. There was no need for him to do much. Even the faces of the people on the thrones turned solemn. Although their strength was much higher than the others, they clearly didn't have any advantage when compared to Tianhua. And Tianhua had cultivated for hundreds of years more than them, which to some extent was a disadvantage. However, at this moment, he had a huge advantage. Even water droplets could wear through stone, let alone humans. The accumulation of these hundreds of years was very terrifying. Even a son of God like Yi Xiankong lacked experience, didn't he? Without sufficient accumulation, they would not be able to make a leap with their talent. Facing in Tianhua's fist energy, he immediately retreated, not daring to take it head-on. He could already see that in Tianhua's martial arts were terrifyingly profound. Even if Tianhua didn't use any magnificent martial arts, it was still enough to suppress him. Normally, when faced with such a powerful opponent, he would just turn around and leave. But now, he had to fight with Tianhua and stimulate all of Tianhua's potential. Thinking of this, he could not retreat. On the contrary, he had to fight with all his might. His flaming longsword slashed out repeatedly, shattering the fist force. At this time, Tianhua also unceremoniously closed in on him. Boom! 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 The two fought fiercely in the void. As soon as they attacked, the entire void was swept up crazily, and then instantly collapsed and exploded. The two fought in the void of the universe more and more valiant, not giving way to each other. This battle was not only seen by Tianhua as a key battle for his breakthrough, but in fact it was also seen by Hui Yi. He had also stepped into the peak of the half-step celestial realm. Although he was not as old as Tianhua and was not in a hurry, his desire to break into the celestial realm was the same. He also saw this as a battle where he could absorb experience and make a breakthrough. At this time, Yi Xuan said, "I'm afraid this Hua, you won't be able to hold on for long." Although the two seemed to be evenly matched, and although Tianhua had the advantage, it was not to the point where he could completely crush Hui Yi. But anyone with a discerning eye could see that Hui Yi had reached his limit. Right now, he was just holding on with his last breath. The other people on the thrones also nodded one after another. They could also see this, and even many other experts could see this, let alone Yi Xuan. Not long after Yi Xuan finished speaking, Hui let out a huge roar, as if he had been suppressed to the extreme. A fire dragon began to condense on his body, and then slowly rose from his body. Unexpectedly, it broke free from the bondage of his spine bit by bit and rushed out. The expressions of the people on the thrones changed slightly. Even though they were far away, they could still feel the terrifying temperature of the flames burning the air. This is Hui Yi's natal fire dragon. Under normal circumstances, it will not be used easily, because once it is used, even an opponent of the same level will be seriously injured. At this time, Yi Xian spoke. Among these people, he had always been on good terms with Yi Xian, so he knew a little more about this than ordinary people. This fire dragon rose with the wind, and everywhere it passed, the entire sky began to fall into a country of flames. The flames burned the sky, almost burning through the entire void. This fire dragon immediately clawed at Tianhua fiercely. It was extremely terrifying, as if the sky was torn apart. This was a real dragon claw, and when it clawed down, the sky and earth changed color. Even a master of the late stage of the celestial realm would find it difficult to resist, because this was a ball of fire primordial spirit. Once touched by it, one would be burned to a pile of ashes on the spot. However, there was no other way not to touch it, so it was the most difficult to deal with. And Tianhua did not underestimate it, and quickly attacked. He blasted out a punch, and the fist energy twisted, instantly blasted on the huge claw of the fire dragon. However, the claw of the fire dragon suddenly disappeared. Yes, disappeared, as if it had been scattered by Tianhua's punch, and then directly turned into a ball of flames. And at the moment when his fist passed through its claw, the ball of flames that seemed to have been scattered suddenly condensed again, and then directly clawed at Tianhua on the spot. And Tianhua's expression changed slightly, and he wanted to withdraw his fist, but he found that he had been firmly fixed by the flames. That ball of flames, with astonishing temperature, was devouring his real yuan at any time and place. This ball of fire divine dragon was really strange. Break for me! At this time, countless divine lights suddenly burst out from Tianhua's body, and the fire divine dragon that was about to catch him was sent flying on the spot. He took a step forward and directly appeared in front of Hui. Hua! He had no time to react, and he was directly in front of him. Boom! Hua! He was hit on the spot by a punch, and was sent flying hundreds of miles away, directly defeated. At this time, while the aura on Tianhua's body was still strong, he heard a loud shout coming from below. Okay, then it's my turn. Immediately after, a figure rushed out from below, and a sword light cut through the sky, like a long river, slashing toward Tianhua. It was none other than Yi Shukong. This one move revealed that his martial arts cultivation was several levels higher than Hui's. One must know that he was already at the peak of the late stage of the celestial realm, or rather, at the same level. It was difficult to be a little stronger, let alone so much stronger. Yi Shukong's reputation as the divine child was not false. Instead, Tianhua was not angry. Just in time, Tianhua directly blasted out a punch, and the powerful fist energy directly collided with the sword aura. Boom! The fist energy and the sword aura exploded on the spot, shattering the void, and countless spiritual chi went wild. The two of them were actually evenly matched, and Tianhua's expression was a little complicated. He was happy that he had found an evenly matched opponent, but he was also a little emotional. The new generation really surpassed the old. He had cultivated for almost 1,000 years, yet he was only at this level of cultivation. Yi Shukong had only been defeated for a short period of time, yet he had already reached this level. It was truly terrifying. The divine child lived up to his name. Come on! And Tianhua immediately blasted out a punch. Watch carefully. This is my own creation, the Splendor Fist. Flashy, but impractical. When he punched out, the entire sky was filled with terrifying apparitions. However, Yi Shukong's expression didn't change in the slightest. Just like the name of this punch, it was flashy but without substance. The apparitions that filled the sky weren't even the most terrifying. What was truly terrifying was the real punch that was outside of the flashy appearance, a punch that was enough to break through everything. Break the absurd. Yi Shukong slashed out with his sword, breaking through the visions that filled the sky, and directly landed on that punch. Boom! Both of them were top-notch martial arts masters, and either of them could easily defeat opponents of the same level. And Tianhua was calm. His many years of cultivation had allowed his strength to accumulate to an unparalleled level. Yi Shukong, on the other hand, was like a sharp sword, incomparably sharp. Although he did not have Tianhua's accumulation, his own bloodline as the divine child was enough to make him unparalleled throughout the journey. This battle was even more terrifying than the one with Hui before. They fought all the way into the depths of the void. Hua, he finally covered his chest and returned to his throne, smiling bitterly. Although he knew that there was a gap between him and Tianhua, he did not expect the gap to be this big. Looking at Yi Shukong's unparalleled sharpness, he really had a wolf in the front and a tiger in the back. At this time, everyone frowned as they watched the battle between the two. Many people were silent. Even though they were far away, it was enough to make them feel the terrifying gap. None of them could match up to any one of them. At this time, only Yi Qianqian and Yi Shiwen's expressions changed slightly, but they also became serious. On the battlefield, Yi Shukong did not stop at all. Another sword cut through the sky, leaving no trace at all, and in an instant, he had already rushed in front of Tianhua. His swordsmanship was incomparably sharp, and there would not be any stagnation, just like when he fought with Yi Shiwen, or even more so. Chapter 1357. His sword sliced through the sky as if it was going to destroy everything. However, Tianhua did not give in and did not give Yi Shukong any chance to take advantage of him. He had been cultivating for nearly 1,000 years and had experienced countless battles. In terms of combat experience, he was far above Yi Shukong. Boom, boom, boom. The two sides had fought hundreds of times in an instant, and the fluctuations were more intense than before. Both sides gradually began to use their full strength, and it was even more terrifying than before. Some experts who were half a step into the late stage of the celestial being realm looked shocked. As for those experts who were half a step into the late stage of the celestial being realm and below, they were even more shocked. If they were to encounter either one of these two people, they would most likely be defeated immediately. There was no other possibility. This was truly a battle of the pinnacle. And Tianhua shouted, "Use your full strength and force out all of my strength." Yi Shukong's face was expressionless, as if he did not hear anything. But the long sword in his hand suddenly burst out with an unimaginable light. His body exuded a terrifying fluctuation of spiritual ether, and an incomparably terrifying power boiled in it. His figure seemed to be raised in the void, like a sword god. Sword chi swept out in an instant, turning into a kingdom of swordsmanship. Countless sword chi flew around, and the law of swordsmanship manifested within it. Although he did not speak, he used his full strength at once, directly evolving into a swordsmanship domain and shrouding Tianhua. At this time, Tianhua had already released his domain. It was as if it had turned into a divine kingdom. In this world, everyone was cultivating the fist Tao and chanting the fist scripture. This was the manifestation of the supreme fist Tao in his heart. This Yi Shukong is stronger than before. Yi Shiwen could not help but sigh in his heart. Compared to before, Yi Shukong was more than a little more tyrannical. Generally speaking, the condensation of a domain was nothing more than a martial arts domain or a law domain. This kind of domain condensed from a certain kind of martial arts was the so-called martial arts domain, and Yi Shiwen's domain of the power of wind and thunder was the law domain. These two domains each had their own advantages and disadvantages. Both of them had people who had cultivated to the pinnacle. Both of their methods were heaven-defying, and it was difficult to determine who was superior. It's really hard to imagine how many years Yi Shukong has been cultivating for, yet he has already endured to such an extent. If he is allowed to continue cultivating, wouldn't he be invincible? At that time, who would be a match for him under the heaven realm? Nowadays, these young people are really fierce. Yi Shiwen and Yi Qianqian haven't fought yet. I really don't know how strong they are. According to the legend, Yi Qianqian is the reincarnation of an ancient goddess. If this is true, then her status and noble bloodline are not inferior to Yi Shukong. Although I don't know where this Yi Shiwen came from, but since he was able to defeat Yi Shukong, then I know that he is extraordinary. Boom! Two huge domains collided fiercely in the air. This was like two huge countries and worlds colliding fiercely in operation. In these two domains of swordsmanship and boxing, countless practitioners of swordsmanship and boxing were fighting each other like two armies. A swordsmanship master had his head blown up by a fist from a boxing master, and a boxing master had his body pierced by a sword. Neither of them moved. This was a battle of martial arts between the two. Although there seemed to be no damage, it was even more cruel because this was the Tao that both of them believed in, the Tao that they believed in to be invincible. They could not afford to lose at all, nor could they allow others to lose 100-fold. And at this moment, Yi Shukong took the lead. He suddenly stomped his feet, and when he appeared again, he was already in front of Tianhua. He leaped up with a long sword, and the surrounding boxing domain was instantly cut open by him. This was an opponent who could really fight against Tianhua, and Tianhua was not slow at all. He directly blasted a punch, and the fist energy twisted, turning into a monster that swallowed the sword light in one gulp. Boom! The sword light directly tore the monster apart, and once again blasted down. Boom! 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 The exchange of attack and defense between the two was extremely fast. Often, in an instant, they had already completed the exchange of attack and defense, dazzling everyone who was watching. Boom! A fist energy broke through the void, and in an instant, appeared on Yi Shukong's chest. A divine light appeared on Yi Shukong's chest, directly wrapping up the fist aura. However, it was still broken by the fist aura, and he was blasted away on the spot. His body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. However, there was not the slightest frustration on his face. On the contrary, there was a smile on his face. In front of Tianhua, a sword light suddenly burst out and directly slashed in front of Tianhua. Boom! Blood splattered from Tianhua's chest, and a huge wound was directly torn open on his chest. It was extremely terrifying, and Tianhua is injured. This Yi Shukong is so strong. Hui Yi's face revealed a look of astonishment. Because he had just exchanged blows with Tianhua, he was very clear about how tyrannical Tianhua was. He was almost unable to fight back, but Yi Shukong was actually able to injure Tianhua. To him, this was simply an existence akin to a miracle. Thinking of this, the expression on his face could not help but constantly change. This time, the two of them could only be said to be evenly matched, and neither could do anything to the other. And Tianhua's skills were extremely profound, and at this time, he had completely displayed the terrifying power of profound skills. Many times, he did not need to care about anything else at all, and he could break all kinds of skills with just his strength alone. After the two of them repeatedly retreated in the void, they once again pounced on each other. Boom! 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 The two of them seemed to have also fought to the point of anger, and both of them suffered more and more injuries. Both of them had their own pride, and they were not allowed to retreat. This battle was very important to both of them, especially in Tianhua, who wanted to learn from this battle and step into the celestial realm in one go. However, the advantages of both of them seemed to be about the same. The two of them fought for a full day and night, but still could not determine the winner. They had no choice but to stop. After all, this battle was not a battle of life and death, and they could not use all of their skills. Indeed, heroes come from the young. When I was your age, I did not have such skills at all, and I did not even have the qualifications to enter the mortal secret realm. And Tianhua could not help but say. The two of them were evenly matched, but there was no way for them to help Tianhua break through the most crucial step, and they could not help but feel that it was a pity. Yi Shukong's expression was calm, and the wounds on his body were also recovering bit by bit. He only nodded at Tianhua. He had also gained a lot from this battle. At his level, any battle with an evenly matched opponent would be able to promote his cultivation. Moreover, he was the son of God, who had never encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation. The only obstacle that hindered his progress was accumulation. And Tianhua could not help but smile bitterly and said, "It seems that there is no way for me to break into the celestial realm today." And Tianhua was depressed. Yi Shukong was already strong enough, but he was actually able to fight with him, who had cultivated for nearly 1,000 years, until now without falling into a disadvantageous position. This was already very rare. If he were to cultivate for a few more years, defeating him would almost be something without any suspense. However, even so, it was still not enough for him to truly squeeze out all of his strength and break through the barrier of the celestial realm in one fell swoop. Yi and the others were also silent for a while. Even Yi Shukong could only fight to a draw with Tianhua and was unable to truly squeeze out his potential, let alone them. Thinking about it, it was the same. Although they all felt that it was a bit of a pity, if they could actually see a celestial realm expert go through the tribulation, it would undoubtedly be of great benefit to their martial arts cultivation, especially since they were also about to enter the celestial realm. This experience could be said to be very valuable, and Tianhua was a bit sad. If even Yi Shukong could not do anything today, who knew how long it would take for him to enter the celestial realm? Perhaps he could enter the celestial realm in the future, but what use would that be? At this moment, Yi Shiwen suddenly stood up from the throne. "Why don't you let me try?" Yi Shiwen's words immediately attracted countless gazes. Just when everyone felt a little hopeless, Yi Shiwen stood up. If it was before, everyone might still have some confidence in Yi Shiwen. After all, he was an existence that easily defeated Wu Pingjiu. But now they saw that even a tyrannical expert like Yi Shukong could not defeat Tianhua. Could Yi Shiwen really do it and force out all of his potential? Although he had a record of defeating Yi Shukong before, everyone just saw Yi Shukong's tyrannical strength. No one thought that Yi Shiwen, who was only at the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm, could defeat Yi Shukong. Yi Shiwen, at this time, Yi Shukong suddenly spoke. "In the future, I hope to fight with you," Yi Shukong said calmly, without any excitement or anger, as if he was just asking if Yi Shiwen had eaten. His state of mind had also reached an extremely high level. Being defeated by Yi Shiwen did not disturb his state of mind. On the contrary, it made him reach a higher level. Such an opponent was the most terrifying, because if it was just the kind of person who looked extremely strong, but was actually mentally weak and could not accept defeat at all, there was nothing to be afraid of at all. This kind of person was nothing to worry about after being defeated once, just like Yi Xing from before. If he could not defeat Yi Shiwen head-on, he could only use some tricks. When he chose to use tricks, it meant that he had given up the possibility of defeating Yi Shiwen himself. He was at a disadvantage, and there was nothing to worry about. "All right." Yi Shiwen nodded, then looked at Tianhua. "Yi Shiwen, come to ask for advice." Chapter 1358. Yi Shiwen, I'm here to ask for advice. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said. And Tianhua looked at Yi Shiwen. Initially, he did not have much hope for Yi Shiwen, but looking at Yi Shukong's appearance, he could see that Yi Shiwen was much more confident than him. So he could not help but feel a little more confident. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel a little more hopeful, and then looked at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not attack immediately, and let Tianhua recover to his peak. He also disdained to take advantage of Tianhua at this time. And Tianhua also understood Yi Shiwen's intention, and at this time he also began to adjust his breathing. Although he had just fought with Yi Shukong, for him, it did not hurt his foundation, and soon, he had almost recovered. All right, let's do it. And Tianhua looked at Yi Shiwen and said. Circles of powerful aura instantly swept out from Tianhua's body, forming a terrifying aura storm, crushing towards Yi Shiwen. Flashy but impractical. At this time, he suddenly blasted out a punch. When this punch was blasted out, he suddenly felt that the sky was full of all-wind, and every all-wind was incomparably gorgeous. It was completely different from just looking at it. Now that he was facing this punch, he realized that it was not easy for Yi Shukong to break this punch just now. This sky full of fist shadows, each punch as heavy as a mountain, could blast through the sky and earth. But Yi Shiwen knew that these were all fake. Only this punch was truly the most fatal. If he could not distinguish between the real and fake, he would be seriously injured on the spot. Good fist technique. Yi Shiwen roared. He also launched a punch at this time. The power of countless stars on his arm rapidly rotated and twined around his fist. It then formed a huge star. He suddenly launched a punch, and the entire starry sky was shattered by this star in an instant. Since he could not distinguish between the real and fake, the best way was to break everything with brute force. No matter what kind of mask you have, I only need one punch to break it all and go straight to Tianhua. Let's see if he will save him or not. Attack where the opponent must save. The best defense is to attack. Sure enough, Tianhua's sky, full of fist shadows, suddenly disappeared, leaving only a huge fist to meet Yi Shiwen's star. Boom! The two fists collided in the void, and a terrifying force exploded in an instant. Like a wave, it swept out in all directions. Cracks appeared in the surrounding void, and countless spiritual chi collapsed. And Tianhua's tall body swayed slightly. What kind of fist technique is this? It's so powerful. And Tianhua couldn't help but say. The Big Bang Stardust Fist had been improved by Yi Shiwen. It was unknown how many times more tyrannical it was compared to before. Even Tianhua couldn't help but marvel at the power of this set of fist techniques. This is called Big Bang Stardust Fist. Yi Shiwen laughed heartily and suddenly rushed towards Tianhua to kill him. What a good fist technique. Take another punch from me. And Tianhua couldn't help but laugh. An extremely condensed Zhen Yuan leaped out of his body and gushed into his fist, transforming into fist energy. Then, a murderous aura surged out of his fist and fiercely punched towards Yi Shiwen. This punch wasn't too gorgeous. On the contrary, it was very simple. It was as if he had truly understood the essence of magnificence. It transformed into surging fist energy, and the world changed because of it. Yi Shiwen's Big Bang Stardust Fist seemed to be wrapped in it in an instant. It was simple and unadorned, but it could contain everything. This was the real powerful point. At this moment, Tianhua seemed to be the only master of this world. Boom! Yi Shiwen's Big Bang Stardust Fist directly rushed into this fist energy and then exploded on the spot. It directly broke Tianhua's fist energy into pieces. On the other side, a sword energy began to condense in Yi Shiwen's hand. It instantly rose against the wind and reached a length of hundreds of feet. Then, it transformed into a huge sword lotus and chopped down towards Tianhua. Chinese costume, beautiful chapter. Tianhua blasted another punch. It flew high up in the sky, and the fist energy broke through the vast sky, manifesting the principles and constantly manifesting a gorgeous movement in the sky. All the magnificence of the world was displayed in this place. Boom! The two collided in the void, and Tianhua was shocked by Yi Shiwen's power and retreated repeatedly. His feet constantly shattered the vacuum as he retreated continuously. Yi Shiwen also felt a terrifying chi gene coming head-on. His figure slightly swayed, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. This time, Yi Shiwen actually had the upper hand in this direct confrontation. This made countless warriors watching the battle below couldn't help but be surprised. This Yi Shiwen was too tyrannical. Everyone was scared silly. And Tianhua's tyrannical strength had been highlighted through the fight with Hua Yi and Yi Shukong just now. But this Yi Shiwen seemed to be even more tyrannical than him. This Yi Shiwen is too strong. He hasn't stepped into the celestial realm yet. It's like the celestial realm has descended. He hasn't even stepped into the half-step celestial realm. Such cultivation is simply shocking. Countless people were shocked. Even the people on the thrones were shocked. Yi Shukong's expression became even more solemn. In less than 10 years, his cultivation could be said to be shocking. But looking at Yi Shiwen, it was not the slightest bit inferior. In fact, it seemed that he had become even stronger. It was simply enough to scare people to death. Most importantly, how could Yi Shiwen's accumulation be so deep? He had personally fought with Tianhua before. In terms of comprehension, Tianhua might not be able to match up to him. However, Tianhua's deep accumulation was already terrifying enough. Simple and unadorned, it was the truest portrayal of Tianhua. But now, the accumulation that Yi Shiwen showed was also terrifyingly powerful. He didn't know what kind of cultivation Yi Shiwen had experienced in the past few years, but from this terrifying accumulation, he could roughly judge that Yi Shiwen had probably used a lot of resources in the past few years to accumulate it. But Tianhua did not give up. Instead, there was a somewhat joyful look on his face. This was the first time he was happy about being at a disadvantage. At this time, he roared again and again. Behind him, a huge figure instantly appeared. A powerful phantom condensed from fist intent, and then fiercely punched towards Yi Shiwen. This was the embodiment of all his fist intent, and it was also one of his greatest means. And at this time, the octagonal cauldron condensed above Yi Shiwen's head, constantly rotating above his head. He stretched out his hand, grabbed one of the octagonal cauldron's leg, and then immediately swung it like a tyrant lifting the cauldron. Boom! Wherever the octagonal cauldron passed, all the void collapsed on the spot, and the spiritual energy was annihilated. His strength had actually reached such a level. Over the years, although his tyrant body had not yet broken through to the 10th level, it had to be said that compared to when he had just broken through to the 9th level, he did not know how powerful it was. He directly smashed the octagonal cauldron towards the huge fist intent phantom. Dang! There was a loud sound of metal colliding, and the fist intent phantom behind Tianhua's fist was smashed and exploded on the spot. The entire huge phantom shook slightly, and Yi Shiwen held the octagonal cauldron and smashed it down again. There was no other reason but to bully the opponent with strength. Yi Shiwen's physical body could be said to be invincible among the same level, and he could even challenge higher levels. The terrifying strength that could compete with the Dragon Clan of the same level finally burst out completely. Dang! 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 Yi Shiwen was like a blacksmith, holding the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron and smashing it continuously. The shadow of the fist intention was like a piece of iron that was constantly being smashed, but it did not become more solid. On the contrary, huge cracks appeared on it, cracks caused by the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. Numerous cracks covered its body, but the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron wasn't any better. Its body was also covered in cracks like a spider web. After all, this was not the real octagonal cauldron, but an energy aggregation condensed by Yi Shiwen. Boom! Yi Shiwen used the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron as an iron hammer and smashed it again. That fist intention phantom finally couldn't resist and directly collapsed. At this time, the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron in his hand also collapsed. Everyone couldn't help but shudder when they saw this scene. They kept quiet out of fear. In their hearts, Yi Shiwen's figure was just like a demon god. He could break all laws with his strength. In Yi Shiwen's hands, this law was displayed to the extreme. And in Tianhua's face was also pale. From the beginning, every time Yi Shiwen smashed the octagonal cauldron, his face would pale a little bit. At this time, his face was already bloodless. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot, and his face began to have a strange redness, but this was a sickly redness. The fight just now with Yi Shiwen was a real contest of strength. There were no tricks involved. It was a battle that only relied on one's own strength. It's really powerful, he could not help but say. If the feeling that Yi Shiwen gave him was incomparably sharp, then Yi Shiwen felt that it was blunt. Yes, blunt. Although it was not sharp, it was more terrifying. But he did not give up. He spat out a mouthful of blood essence, and the chi and blood in his body became more powerful, like a blood pillar shooting straight into the sky. The chi on his body condensed into 5 huge figures behind him. The faces of these 5 huge figures couldn't be seen clearly, but the terrifying fist intent emanating from them made people shudder in fear from afar. Yi Shiwen instantly saw that these 5 phantoms were the condensation of the fist intent of the 5 moves of his splendid fist. He actually condensed his moves to such a degree of fist intent. This and Tianhua's accumulation of nearly 1,000 years was indeed powerful and terrifying. Boom! These 5 huge virtual shadows surrounded Yi Shiwen and started to bombard him. Chapter 1359. This move of his was much more terrifying than all the previous moves, and a tidal wave of attacks blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Such attacks came from all directions, as if there was no end to them. These were the 5 moves of the Splendor Fist that Tianhua had created himself. The fist intent had condensed into a phantom image. Every single move was earth-shattering and terrifying. In particular, these 5 moves could be said to have originated from the source. Thus, they could be used to attack together, causing their power to continuously rise. Boom! 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 Golden divinity constantly appeared on Yi Shiwen's body to block these attacks. But even so, his divinity began to dim, and he was actually affected by the backlash. One could imagine how terrifying these 5 phantoms were. What a powerful fist technique. It can actually have such changes. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a sense of enlightenment. He suddenly had an idea, a change in martial arts that he had never thought about before. At this time, this move of Tianhua gave him a whole new direction. It was as if he had been enlightened, and he was instantly enlightened. He blasted out fist shadows all over the sky, directly covering the entire sky. The martial arts torrent that the 5 phantoms blasted out was also suddenly blocked, and all the attacks were blocked. Amazing. These 2 were so amazing. Well, he couldn't help but exclaim, especially Yi Shiwen. He had seen Yi Shiwen's progress with his own eyes. When he had first seen Yi Shiwen could only protect himself against Yin Taiping. When he saw Yi Shiwen again, Yi Shiwen was already able to injure Yin Taiping. When he saw Yi Shiwen again, Yi Shiwen had already far exceeded his expectations. He had personally witnessed Yi Shiwen becoming stronger step by step, so he was particularly impressed. Several people on the thrones also nodded. If it were them, could they block such an attack? Not to mention Yi Qianqian, maybe Yi Shukong could block it, but the others might not be able to. They might even be killed on the spot. Seeing such an attack, both Yi Qianqian and Yi Shukong seemed to have realized something. Yi Shiwen unceasingly blocked the attacks of these 5 fist intents and slowly and gradually began to counterattack. The mysterious space inside his body also began to constantly deduce the essence of these 5 fist intents, and gradually, he was able to see some flaws, and not only did he block, but he also began to counterattack. Boom! Bang! Bang! This kind of attack continued, but at this time, behind Yi Shiwen, a faint silhouette began to appear. There were fist intents, palm intents, sword intents, and saber intents. These martial arts willpower unexpectedly began to take human form, and Tianhua was incomparably amazed as he watched from the side. It had taken him several hundred years to comprehend this step. He had never expected that Yi Shiwen would actually comprehend it now. It should be known that this was not as simple as transforming the martial will into a human form. There were many Heaven Realm experts who were unable to thoroughly comprehend the principles contained within. However, Yi Shiwen was actually able to condense the embryonic form after a battle. It was really exaggerated. Everyone said that Yi Shiwen's aptitude was not high, but now it seemed that not only was it high, but it was also terrifyingly high. He was not an outwardly handsome person, but an inwardly handsome person. This kind of person was also very frightening. "Ha!" Yi Shiwen shouted. In the sky full of fist shadows, he directly transformed into a monstrous giant hand. With a grasp, all the fist shadows were directly crushed. Then his figure suddenly sprang out, like a flood dragon coming out of the abyss. In an instant, he had already rushed in front of a fist intent. A punch directly penetrated the body of this fist intent. This fist intent was directly shattered, and countless fist intents were absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen suddenly had a great understanding. This fist intent was the truth of the fist that Tianhua had comprehended for countless years. Now, it was actually completely absorbed and comprehended by Yi Shiwen. If it was replaced by an ordinary person, it would be impossible at all, but Yi Shiwen had the mysterious space, so he could completely absorb it without reservation. After breaking through a fist intent, a huge gap immediately appeared in the circle of this 5-joint defense, and this gap was instantly seized by Yi Shiwen and immediately fiercely blasted out. Boom! Another fist intent was completely destroyed by Yi Shiwen. Immediately after, the other 3 fist intents were also blasted by Yi Shiwen in an instant. And Yi Shiwen, who had absorbed 5 fist intents, seemed to have ascended to a higher level. Every move he made had the demeanor of a master of the fist Tao. Not good. and Tianhua did not expect Yi Shiwen to completely defeat his five-fist intense so quickly. He could not help but turn pale with fright. At this time, Yi Shiwen was like a god of the fist Dao, and immediately blasted out a punch. The mighty fist momentum instantly shrouded Yi Shiwen, and Tianhua hurriedly blasted out a punch, wanting to break Yi Shiwen's fist momentum, but found that his fist momentum was instead absorbed by Yi Shiwen, making his fist momentum even more powerful, and he could not escape at all. Boom! Finally, Yi Shiwen's fist momentum fell, and Tianhua could not block it at all, and was directly blasted into the body. Bang! His body was directly blasted, and his whole person was directly blasted out on the spot. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his spirit was completely dispirited. He no longer had the brave and fierce state of mind that was invincible just now. But this battle had a great impact on his state of mind. Almost at the moment when he was blasted out by Yi Shiwen, he sat cross-legged on the spot, as if he had a great understanding. And Yi Shiwen also stopped his offensive. He originally did not come to kill in Tianhua, and he also had a great understanding in this battle. At this time, he was also constantly digesting what he had just comprehended, and Tianhua sat cross-legged for a day and a night. Suddenly, his mind opened wide, as if he had a great enlightenment in an instant. Countless clouds in the sky began to condense. Everyone present suddenly came to a realization. Celestial realm retribution. Suddenly, there was a complicated expression on their faces. For all warriors, especially masters who were half a step into the celestial realm, the celestial realm tribulation was a terrible topic that could not be avoided, because this was an extremely terrible tribulation. Among the masters who were half a step into the late stage of the celestial realm, half were killed by the thunder tribulation when crossing the tribulation, and the rest did not even have the qualifications to trigger the thunder tribulation. And there were simply very few masters who could really cross the tribulation and become celestial realm masters. But this was a threshold that they could not avoid. If they wanted to step into the celestial realm, this was an inevitable process. Everyone stared closely at Tianhua. This was a very rare opportunity to witness a person crossing the tribulation. This opportunity could be said to be once in a blue moon, and under normal circumstances, it was impossible to see it all, because everyone would choose a very safe place to cross the tribulation. Such places were often inaccessible or heavily protected, and ordinary people had no way to see it all. Now, if it was not because of the special situation of Tianhua, if he really wanted to cross the tribulation, he would also choose such a place, and no one would be able to see it at all. Crossing the tribulation was very dangerous. Being able to see how others cross the tribulation and be able to understand a little more was also a very valuable experience for them. When the time came, they could also make targeted preparations, and the benefits for their future were self-evident. Yi Shiwen was the same. Even Yi Shiwen was the same. His eyes were fixed on the heavenly tribulation. He was very clear that if it were him, the scale of this heavenly tribulation would probably be more than 10 times bigger than this one. And the terrifying things inside would be even stronger. This heavenly tribulation certainly could not be compared with the time when he was crossing the heavenly tribulation, but it had the meaning of reference. He could really see how different the heavenly tribulation of celestial being realm was. Yi Qianqian, Yi Shukong, and the others also stared closely at Tianhua and the tribulation in the void. And under the gaze of everyone, Yi Shukong directly walked into the depths of the void. The tribulation of the celestial realm was too terrifying. If he crossed the tribulation here, even the secret territory number 200 might be destroyed. At that time, who knew how much it would cost to compensate? Whoosh! A bolt of lightning instantly struck Tianhua's body like an electric snake. In an instant, Tianhua's body was charred black by the lightning. And Tianhua's entire body was slightly shaken by the lightning. This lightning bolt was not only terrifying, but its strength was also frighteningly great. However, this lightning bolt seemed to be just an appetizer. Immediately afterward, countless lightning bolts instantly slid down in an instant. His surroundings seemed to have turned into a sea of lightning that instantly drowned him. When everyone saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically. Although with their status in the Yi clan, they were considered elites, and basically, as long as there was a record of the Celestial Realm's tribulation in the Yi clan, they could basically see it. Therefore, they also knew how the Celestial Realm's tribulation was passed, but when they really saw this scene, they still felt a kind of creepy feeling. Such a terrifying tribulation. If it were them, it would not take long for them to be struck to pieces. Thinking of this, many of the experts who were originally depressed about why they could not trigger the lightning tribulation suddenly felt lucky. Fortunately, they had not triggered the lightning tribulation, otherwise they would probably have died a violent death. Although they also knew that the tribulation that experts of different levels faced was naturally completely different. With their current accumulation, it would be difficult for them to escape death in the end. Thinking of this, they could not help but feel very lucky. Even Hoi and the others were no exception. With such a terrifying tribulation, the probability of them surviving it was not very high. Even if they had prepared in advance, they still did not have much confidence. Although their hearts were full of emotions, no one blinked. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the faintly discernible figure in the sea of lightning. That figure was like a benchmark. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.